Can I ask the question?
Yes.
Okay, so we made an assumption that for this meeting, this June meeting, he would have the information to us, even though we gave him 60 days. And he provided information, but it is not reflective of what he needed to, correct? I want to be sure that I'm being fair here. Okay.
As I remember,
Yeah.
he said he'll provide that information right away.
Right away,
and
yes.
The funds were there.
Okay, and you are, as staff, prepared to take this to council this month at the second meeting of council, correct?
It is currently slated for approval based on the committee's recommendation for the extension to be approved by the county council at the June 22nd meeting.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
This has been a project that, for me, that has been a difficult project anyway from the very beginning, and so I'll put a motion out there and see what happens. I move that we withdraw the grant on the 1810 project for the YMCA. See if we get the second.
I'll second the motion. I have another question I'd like to ask the staff.
Yes, please.
When Mr. Sykop submitted this May 13th statement or transaction, whatever you want to call this, was there conversation with him at that point in time telling him this is not sufficient, that we have concerns?
I without Miss Hall here, I wasn't involved in those conversations at the time, so I cannot say with accuracy and precision that's needed at this time.
And he's not here either, correct? I mean, that's concerning to me. This is an agenda item, and the applicant who knows that there's been issues with this particular grant has not shown up. Has he called and said he's running late? Has anybody heard from him?
I did inform the chair that he let us know via email yesterday when we sent him a reminder that he may be running a bit late to this meeting, but he planned on attending.
Okay, so here's part of what troubles me, all right?
That's not good.
At the last meeting, he says that he's already ordered the playground for DeLand. Now, usually when you order something, a capital item, you somehow have encumbered that money so that the vendor knows you're good for it. So the one thing that's in my head that I don't really know the answer to, theoretically, could this be the money, the $11,970 that's left in the account after he's, we don't know that. Yeah, this is pretty troubling all the way around. And it's certainly not showing the appropriate degree of respect to the program and the staff and the board.
And the taxpayers.
Yeah.
No, I totally agree. I just thinking that your question to staff about him showing these two accounts, in his mind, he might be saying we're good for it because he's taking into account both the DeLand and the Orman account. And, I think we have to look at the DeLand account because I assume they run separately and they pay their bills separately, et cetera. So it is very concerning. The 60 days, I think that's what we told them. I feel like we either have to, cancel it now or give them the 60 days. And it is all troubling. It's troubling for all the taxpayers. It's troubling for everybody, but we have to remember the outcome. It's for the kids. And, my kids have spent a lot of time at the Y and, giving them new playground equipment, stuff like that, and being part of that is very rewarding. And, I think, all the taxpayers that have children that send them to the Y is looking for, new playground equipment, better, safer equipment. It's disturbing he's not here. I think we need to address that. He may show up here in a minute. He said he was going to be late, but we need to, either move one way or the other. But the 60 days, if I tell somebody 60 days, I think we should give him 60 days. And he needs to explain if he's thinking that both of these accounts are, more than enough. Well, he needs to transfer some money into the Deland account.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do reiterate the same. We've given him the 60 days in writing, so I believe we need to follow through with that. I do believe we're deserving of an explanation of the bank statement. Maybe it is, like you said, already purchased and this is the remainder balance. So I do want to reiterate that I think we should follow through with what we decided.
I think I want to withdraw my second. What was the motion, Pat? I'm sorry.
Motion was to cancel the grant.
Okay, I want to withdraw my second. We made a motion at the last meeting, which was 60 days, and we signed off on that at the last meeting.
And I understand that, and I normally that would save the day for me, but the fact is that he's already provided the information and he's not here is what is very concerning to me. And this has been a pattern from the Y over the last couple of years. Yeah, this has been a pattern. So I'll withdraw my motion, but since there's no second, but this has been a pattern from this organization that is difficult to live with and not fair to those organizations that have complied as they have been requested to. He knew he had to provide the documentation. He did not provide accurate documentation, and he's not here to defend it. So I think it's done in my mind, but I don't think that's what the board is in agreement with. So
I'll second the motion.
Wait, she withdrew it.
You withdraw it?
Wait a
withdrew
second.
it. Yeah.
Chris just walked in.
Oh, boy.
You would just come to the podium, Chris.
Well, that'd be one way
Pretty
to
much.
look at it.
Yes, that's true.
Pretty much.
That would be more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's supposed to be more fun. Yeah, you're right, Carol. All right. So we are going to rescind our ECHO grant for the dog path fitness trail around the Ormond Y for now.
I don't want to talk about
We're
that
not
yet.
on that one yet.
I wanna
We're
talk about
still on
DeLand.
DeLand Playground.
Bank account.
Yeah, she sent you the wrong account. I wish I would have known earlier. If someone would have sent me an email earlier, that's what she sent, was the wrong account.
So you're saying there's another account for DeLand?
Yeah.
That has adequate funds in it?
Oh, yeah, we have more than enough money
And
for
when,
this,
and
yeah.
when will we see that?
I'll get you today or tomorrow.
Why
whenever
don't
you
we
want.
have it now if you know that she gave us the wrong
I didn't
one?
know she gave you the wrong one until 10, 15 minutes ago. I did not know that. So if I had known that, then I could have corrected it. But obviously my CFO sent you guys the wrong one, and I didn't know what she sent you until I got the email from Jill about 15 minutes ago when I was in the Rotary meeting.
All right, Mr. Chairman, based on that information, we gave him 60 days. I think we'll live with this. For me, I live with the 60 days, but that correction has to get out to us.
Well, yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, you didn't have to give the correct information. This has been a pattern. You came in late, so don't give me the look. Okay, Chris, thank you. And then the other one, I guess we can talk about the other one whenever we're ready to.
Okay, so I believe we're going to honor what was done, the decisions from the last meeting, and continue to give them additional days up to 60 on 1810, which is the land playground, and also 1811, which is the Ormond playground. Is that correct?
You get the email on the delivery of that one. So I sent an email to Jill saying the delivery date for that one is August 10th, I believe is what I was been given from the playground company.
So at the committee's direction, we've prepared the 60-day extension for the DeLand and the 90-day extension for the Ormond.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, I believe we can move on to the next one, the grant 1912 for the dog.
Wait a minute,
Sir,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I just have a question about before you move on to the next one. For 1810 and 1811, can you give us an update if you have the plans to get the signage so that at completion, that is also completed?
Yes.
You are having trouble finding a sign.
We found a company that would do it within time.
Okay, thank
With that, no further questions on the playgrounds?
Jay, Pat Patterson has something to say.
Oh,
Pat, you need to unmute your mic, please.
Yes. Can somebody text him or something? Tell him to
Just
turn on his
text, I
mic?
just texted them, told them we couldn't hear them.
His note says that you cannot withdraw a previous motion without a vote by the entire body.
Thank you, but we haven't withdrawn. So,
And we,
yeah.
I mean, we withdrew our second.
No, we withdrew it. The motion was undone. So it's really taking no action.
Pat,
Yeah, can you hear me now? Hello? Can you hear me?
You guys want to answer Pat?
I'm not sure what we're answering.
No, these guys.
I'm still showing muted.
Mr. Patterson has immense knowledge in parliamentarian rules, so I've seen it done both ways. I mean, technically he's correct. You can withdraw a second and the motion dies for lack of a second. I've seen it that way. I've also seen, as Mr. Patterson indicated, that in order for it to be officially withdrawn, the members of the majority have to vote that way. So whatever the pleasure of the board is in that matter.
I believe we're happy with continuing with our commitment to giving him the 60 days. And at the end of that, we will discuss it again. Hopefully, we don't have to discuss it.
So what I'm hearing, though, is that because Sarah Lee withdrew her second, that the motion died for want of another second.
Correct.
So that's what I'm hearing, as opposed to voting. Okay.
Well, okay, if we're going to stand on ceremony here, I withdrew a second. Then Mr. Alt said, I'll second it.
Yeah.
But then Ms. Northey said she was going to withdraw.
She withdrew before he had it.
Okay.
I'm not sure whether we're all right or not.
So for clarification, my recommendation based on that would be, why don't we just vote on whether the board agrees to withdraw the motion.
Okay.
Do we have to
Hello?
make a motion?
Of course.
I'm
Hello?
going to make a motion that we vote to withdraw the motion.
And a second.
Perfect. Okay. All in favor?
Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Yes.
I think David did.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Would the board care to vote on this issue? All in favor?
Yeah.
Aye.
Okay. So Chris, to recap, it's going to go to the county council on the 22nd. And then we still have some time. And by our next meeting, we need to have all this bank account stuff straightened out.
Yeah, bank account, I'm not worried about that. It's getting something fast enough with the land I'm worried about. The reason I put email from the Billy Goat company saying they were stuck in Chicago. Well, evidently, I got a phone call from them saying that a while ago it was lied to, that 7 of their 8 orders that said was Chicago actually never made it to Chicago. And ours was one of those who never made it to Chicago. So the company that supplies the playground company lied to them in essence on the shipment of it. So now I gotta find something that will get into the land in 60 days. So now my task to figure that out. When I bought it, they said it'd be delivered by June 10th. And they kept delaying it. So now I gotta find something that's gonna get into the land fast.
I have a question. So it has not been paid for yet?
Oh, yeah. We paid for it. We paid them up front for the playground equipment. That's how you have to do it.
So you've paid for it, but they're not going to deliver it?
Yeah, but not within your time frame. Right now, they don't have a date of delivery, unfortunately. I've been on them for the past month because I was originally told June 10th. Actually, no, I was told May 10th to ship out. Be here in time for the June 10th installation. Then I get an email saying, no, it's stuck in Chicago, which I forwarded on Jill, that she got it to you guys. I don't know if she did it. And now I found out that they lied. It's not in Chicago, that it hasn't even gotten there yet. No.
So Plan B is a different vendor?
Plan B is a different vendor, get my money back. Yeah. So, yeah, it's,
Well, so it doesn't, the chances of you making that 60 days is,
with the land,
yes.
no, not unless I can find something much smaller and it's in stock from a different vendor.
Chris, would it not be best for you to withdraw, and reapply for the DeLand
Yeah, we
site?
can do that. It'd probably be better.
At this point, I mean, it's getting very complicated.
Yeah.
And you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
You know, so you're better off.
Yeah, I can do that.
And that's not unusual right now. Everybody's having issues with.
And I can withdraw the land, and that's not a problem. To what I'm told right now, Orman, we should be on. But again, my information is only good when I'm told. And if I'm told the wrong information, which I was for the land site. Orman, I've been told, I passed the email on to Jill of what delivery date I expect, what they told me. And again, in today's world, who knows?
Is it the same vendor?
Same vendor, yeah, same vendor.
That one we gave was 90 days, I believe. Yeah, okay, so that one you might still make it. Mr. Chairman, may I ask the staff a question on this? For a withdrawal for the DeLand project, does Chris need to do something formal, or can he make that now and we take a vote on that? I'm trying to uncomplicate what seems to be a very complicated issue.
Jill, correct me if I'm wrong, but typically we receive a formal request, we bring it before the committee, and then this one will have to go before the county council.
And that's actually correct. I'd echo what Brad said. We actually have 2 withdrawals that are also going on county council on June 22nd. And I believe there's been a restrictive covenant's already been executed. So we'll have to release that, which would be part of the motion and approval by the county council.
But because we're not going to meet until we're not going to meet before the county council meets. Can that go directly from Chris to county council, and it doesn't need to come back to us, does it?
No, typically it does, yes, ma'am, because you make a recommendation for the action to council.
Can we make that recommendation now?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not going to get on it won't be on the June 22nd agenda item.
Okay.
It'll be on the July 20th.
Okay. I thought we were still moving forward on the.
So if I hear that's what's going to happen, then I think maybe the recommendation from staff to management will be withdraw item 1810 from the June 22nd county council meeting for approval.
Correct.
And I don't think you need a motion for that. I just,
Okay.
based on what's been said here today, I think staff can make that recommendation.
And as best practice, if we're gonna complete the package, we would much prefer that you look at it and vote on it first
Okay.
before we walk it on.
As long as you're withdrawing it from the council, that's fine.
Have we totally,
Thoroughly confused this.
I think we've exhausted this, these two grants. Chris, while you're at the mic, could we discuss the next grant, 1912, project? I think that's your trail that you're,
No,
or is that
the trail is by itself. The aquatic park was tied with the playground.
That's not what this says.
That's how it is, I believe.
This says Echo Grant 19-12 Ormond Beach Community Aquatic and Park Project -YMCA Trail.
Right.
That's how the application is. All of them have the Ormond Beach Community Aquatic Park Project, and then there was the dog park, and now there's the trail.
So yeah, so the trail we're not going to follow through with at this time. The trail we are not going to follow through with at this time.
Okay, so you're going to withdraw the trail, and staff has gotten that information formally.
I emailed them this
Okay.
morning about that.
So can we take an action?
But now, wait. The aquatic park is there.
Right.
That part,
But just the trail.
it's the dash,
It's the
Okay, so-
dash.
it's the YMCA trail.
okay, so just that part of the project is not
Correct.
gonna
Well,
be done.
Chairman, I have in our open grants, and Jill, maybe you can clarify this. It says the project will add a fitness trail around the perimeter of the property and add a computerized gate, a security camera, and lights for the dog park. That was the project. Are we talking? Okay, just checking.
Okay, so you're withdrawing that,
Yes.
okay?
Do you need a motion, Mr. Chairman? Make a motion that we, on Echo Grant 1912 Ormond Beach Community Aquatic and Park Project, the YMCA trail piece of that project be withdrawn from consideration for funding.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 I still have a question for you. So this project, are you splitting it so there's two components to it?
Just going away.
Okay,
The trail
Incomplete.
and whatever,
Yeah.
The trail and whatever.
complete.
Is there an
Someone said something about a
implication?
water park, and I was like, that's not
Well,
here.
that's their formal name.
Oh, see. Okay.
Yeah, that's what's getting confusing.
Is there an implication on the funds?
Yeah, why did you cancel it? I'm just curious about that.
$480,000 was the YMCA share of the project, 400,000 from Echo. The 480 we felt could be reallocated due to the financial situations that are going on in the community to a project that has more ROI for the Ormond-wide long-term viability. We may go back to this project after we get some other parts of the Ormond-wide expansion completed, but at this time, what needs to be done to that building and using YMCA funds, the ROI on a walking trail around the Y doesn't rank that high.
But it doesn't, taking that out doesn't impact the amount of money that the Y gets from Echo for the overall project.
Yes.
I think it
Yes,
does.
Yes, it does.
Terminates the project.
And my question is, how is it divided? In other words, is it clearly designated the trail versus the balance of the activity there? Because that would make a difference.
From my understanding, the trail is different than the playground. That's a different grant. I think
They're
that's being
different
confused right now. Those two are separate grant numbers in
I
your
think
system.
that's correct.
Right, so I think there's confusion there. So only because we're not doing the trail does not affect the money for the playground.
I'm not talking about the money for the playground. I'm talking about the money that was allocated for grant 19-12. That was what, 400,000? And it doesn't impact the 400,000 just because the trail's not being done.
I believe he's
Should.
withdrawing the entire project.
Yes, we're
Right, so I
withdrawing
think
the
trail.
project.
All of it's gone
Yeah.
because it's two separate.
So we're withdrawing the entire project was well over $1 million. or $800,000. So we just won't be.
Okay,
doing
so
that
you're
at the time.
withdrawing the whole thing.
Of the trail, yes, at this time, we're withdrawing the trail. Because we do not have the matching funds for it at this time.
Trails are expensive, Sarah Lee. They're,
Yeah. It's just that the aquatic park part.
As a point of clarification, I believe that this was the name of the application, but the aquatic part was actually part of the playground
Okay.
grant, looking at the budgets in front of me.
Okay.
And the dog park and the security cameras and all those things, those are associated with the trail.
Correct. It was in the
Right.
same grant. So those will not be done either.
Can I ask a question, sir? Chris, so am I understanding that all three projects are going to be withdrawn at this time?
No, only the trail. We're not withdrawing the playground and the water, and the splash pad's already been done.
So 1912 is
all-
going to go away.
Oh, you mean the Deland?
We have three open ones now. So we have 1810, which is the DeLand Family YMC Playground.
Correct,
We have 1811 Ormond Beach YMCA Community Aquatic and Park Project.
correct. That's a playground.
And then you have this Ormond Beach YMCA Community Aquatic Park Phase 4.
And that's the dog fitness trail.
So all three are going to be withdrawn.
No, the fitness trail is being withdrawn. The land playground is something that occurred to me while I was standing here. There's been some expenditures on that project already. That's going to create some problems for us. We already bought all the rubber mulch. We already bought all the border. We already bought some of the equipment that's being delivered today. Just the bulk of it is going to be delivered in a few weeks. Well, I don't know when it's going to be delivered. So that's a problem that we have now on our hands, is that we've already purchased probably $12,000 worth of equipment. It's already been delivered for the land playground.
Through the chair to Member Simmons, this is a phase project. So a lot of times they'll have the same name. So you're looking at the 1811 project with the same name, and you're looking at the 1912 with the same name, but it's a different phase. So we're funding a different phase of it. So that may be the confusion. He's saying that we're going to take 1912, that phase, out of the project.
That helps me.
Yes, that's correct.
So the record's clear. What I understand is there's going to be a formal submission to withdraw the request for fundings for 1810 and 1912 grants. Is that correct?
I thought that Jill said I thought that you said you had already submitted an email on
1912, I've submitted an email. Yes,
Yes.
that one would definitely.
So that's already into the staff.
So that'll be that's withdrawn in an email.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Yes.
didn't we take action on that? I think we withdraw that, so. No, that was
1912 of 1912.
Now 1810, because I thought we had moved on from that one, but is that not the case?
Yeah, 1810 it dawned on me that I have some expenditures that we've started down the road on. So
I'm just trying to make sure the record's clear so we all understand.
Yeah, well, it's amazing how things can get so convoluted.
It's my understanding that Chris, you're going to submit a withdrawal on 1810, correct?
Well, the problem with that is I already have expenditures out there. So I bought stuff already as the playground goes along, did different stuff for it. So I bought the surface for the whole playground. I bought the edging. I bought a part of it. It's just the main structure is the issue now. So if I withdraw that.
But isn't that the one where they
Exactly. That's where I have everything. But
so, and you've only got another 30 days anyway from this group. So
right.
I understood you to say you were going to withdraw that.
I thought about it and it dawned on me, wait a minute, I have expenditures out there now. So we have about $10,000 worth of equipment sitting at the Y that are already purchased for the playground.
Well, you're not going to meet the deadline now, so I think you should either true up today because in 30 days, we're going to be back at the exact same situation.
Right.
And you're explaining that you bought some mulch or something. Well, all the YMCA's in this county, can't some of them use that mulch?
It's a rubber mulch. It's a green rubber mulch. It's for, it's meant,
I'm just saying,
I know.
if
I
you're not
understand
going to have
what
the
you're saying.
playground equipment and you have
Right.
$10,000 worth of rubber mulch,
Okay.
I would think if it was my business, I would find some place to use that rubber mulch that wouldn't be involved with 1810.
Okay.
It's your business, it's your grant.
All right.
Nobody can.
Because I don't see how you can match up on your expenditures if the project's.
Yeah, because the whole thing is, I get that. I'll figure this out.
It's hearing me.
I
I
get that.
don't know what the deal is.
It's not coming through here.
No.
Okay, so I think as a point of clarity, as I understand it,
Okay.
grant
Just call back when you want to
1810
say something.
and 1912 are going to be rescinded, and 1811 is going to continue.
Withdrawn or rescinded? Because those are two different,
Withdrawn, whatever.
by the applicant.
By the applicant.
And 1912 has already been, the email's been received. So can we not take care of that one today? I thought we did that.
You can make a motion.
I thought I did, but.
I apologize if you did, Mr. Northey. I didn't hear.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, did you hear it or not? Will we do it again? I'll do it.
Let's do it one more time.
All right. I make a motion that Echo Grant 1912 Ormond Beach Community Aquatic and Park Project YMCA Trail, piece of that, be, do I want to rescind or withdraw, staff? What word do I want to use here, guys?
That we approve the applicant's request to withdraw.
That we approve the applicant's request to withdraw the grant. Thank you.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Are we clear on 1810? Because this was the one that was going to be withdrawn. Now it has mulch. It's not going to make the 60 days because the playground equipment is not where it's supposed to be. I mean, I'm asking the applicant, or
I'll just have to probably hold on to it and put in storage until I can reapply for the playground.
okay, so
I can think of it at this point.
will you send us a formal withdrawal of 1810?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, do we need a motion or anything on this, or are we understood?
If it's a verbal right now, then if he's verbally said he's withdrawing the application, then you can make a motion conditioned upon the formal receipt of the letter withdrawing it so that they could then move forward at July board for the required releases and things.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion and a second?
I think Jack made that motion, right?
Confused. Okay, so that's,
Making a motion to accept the applicant's withdrawal of Echo Grant dash 1810 conditioned upon a
a written.
receipt of a formal written request of withdrawal.
There you go.
I'll second that.
Said,
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Damn.
Opposed? Hearing no opposed, motion carries.
So
Thank you. Okay, we can now move on to new business. The first item is Pictona, the city of Holly Hill. I have a note here that it was pulled from the agenda, but they're here to present. So we'll try to attend the meeting virtually if there are any questions. Do we have any discussion on Pictona?
yeah, mine's marked through.
Mine's marked through, so are we done with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so basically,
If you'd like some background, so Ms. Hall and myself spoke with Mr. Forte, and we felt that the request that he was making was a waiver of the rules. Well, the rules are about to change. So it would be better to come back at a later time with that request.
Okay,
Okay, fair enough.
moving on to the next item. We have a tentative schedule here, and it's a timeline for going through another grant cycle, which we've requested, and I think staff's done an amazing job going through it. The one item that I want to bring up is if we do not get through all of our work today, we're going to need to have that meeting on June 24th. That was scheduled as kind of a backup in case we don't get everything accomplished. So I wanted to bring that up. Does anybody else have any comments on this timeline?
Sarah Lee, you need to put your mic on.
The joint meeting scheduled for July 13th. And that's on this the timeline that we've been presented.
Would that, and that joint meeting, is that a time certain? Is that the way that would work?
For the joint meeting,
Yeah.
so that depends. It's a time certain by council time.
Okay.
It may not be a
We wouldn't
time.
have to be here earlier than that, or would we?
What does it say on the agenda? I don't have it right in front of me. What is it?
3:30, I
30 to
think.
5.
So it wouldn't be earlier necessarily. But what's that? Oh, Volusia Forever's meeting with council before that.
So some background on this item is we're bringing it to you because originally Volusia Forever had the afternoon, and we're going to do Volusia and Echo both in that afternoon. So Volusia Forever is going to go from 1:30 to 3:30. Echo is going to go 3:30 to 5:30. And the reason we did that is because those times were on council members' calendars. And in order to, based on the feedback we've received from the committee and from the listening sessions, we've got a lot of projects out there this year that want to get in before their budget year ends on October 1st. Doing it this way will allow us to get them to encumber those funds if they have a good project and do the funding early, the funding if they qualify based on your review early 2022. That was our goal with this tentative timeline.
And would our agenda with the county council be about the guidebook and changes, or would it be something beyond that?
Exactly that.
Okay, all right.
And so Volusia Forever is 1:30.
1:30 to 3:30,
Okay.
and then the Echo 3:30 to 5:30.
Okay.
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 Backing up, under new business, we have the discussion points for the proposed changes. Has everybody had a chance to review those? They're in our agenda package.
They're the ones that we said before, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
There are 21 proposed changes here.
Are we gonna, I would like to go through each one.
Okay. Yeah, y'all are new, so I think that's probably fair, Mr. Chairman. I mean, we've been here a while, but the new members, sure, I'm okay with that.
What I would suggest is that as we're going through them, if there's some that we can agree on, maybe we can accept them. And if there's others that we have to have prolonged conversation, we can maybe put those to the end. So that way we, be kind of efficient.
So generally, are we jumping over the decision points position and just going directly to those?
I would start with the recommended changes, right?
Okay.
And
And then go back to the decision points?
Where do I find that in my
it's right
book? Well, that's what I'm looking. Okay. I'm just saying listening sessions. Oh, are these it? I think I found them.
Well, what we have here is the proposed changes. We have a list of items that says, number one, do you wish to move forward with the previous recommendations from the Eco Advisory Committee and the internal auditor? Yes or no? And I believe the answer is no, because we want to discuss these individually.
I mean, ultimately, the answer may be yes, but I feel like because there's so many that we should take them individually in the event that we have a question about one of them, but still are okay with it. I would be
Well, I
more
agree.
comfortable that way.
Okay. So I think what we should do is maybe move on to we'll come back to that point and discuss each of them correctly. Item number 2 here is, do you wish to continue funding the trail set aside on an annual basis?
Oh, I just want my pen.
And basically it's, I mean,
I move that we continue the trail set aside on an annual basis.
I second.
Did you go over number 1? That's number 2.
Right.
we're going to come back to number 1 because that's going to be a much longer topic. We're going to try to get through the first as many of these as we can.
Mr. Chair, if we could get a specification in the amount of the recommendation that the committee is recommending?
We're doing what, $1 million a year now, right?
Currently, it's $1 million a year.
Million a year.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to make sure that's so your recommendation is to keep the $1 million, or your motion, I'm sorry.
Well, I'd take it higher, but but I don't know that the support is here for that, but I don't want to lose it. So,
Well, I am in support of continuing a set aside for trails. However, in terms of a specific dollar amount, I wanted to see what people's thoughts were on number 3.
Right. But yeah, because whether that comes out.
oh,
Yeah,
And so
Right.
I think the $1 million set aside is that I was seconding based on it remaining the same. But my position would be on the third point is no, that in fact, there's no, those funds, that $1 million is not extracted. And then in fact, those need to be projects that are presented on top.
can I speak to that as somebody who's been involved with the trails? A lot of the asphalt is on the ground. The $1 million, I mean, if you want a world-class trail system, you need to have amenities. And
I agree. I just don't want to reduce the $1 million to get the amenities. I'd rather put the amenities on top of the $1 million as an extra fund. And in
I
other words,
agree.
that the amenities are presented as a project and that we in fact agree to it.
yeah, I hear what you're saying, but there are issues of resurfacing, and I see Mr. Bailey is out there. I was wondering, Mr. Chairman, if we could hear from Mr. Bailey on this one, because I don't know how many more miles of county responsibility are left. I think I saw this as an enhancement to not just building, but to also providing those amenities that would not have to come back through a process that would be part of the $1 million set aside. So that's where I'm at.
Right. Good afternoon, Tim Bailey, Parks, Recreation and Culture Director. And yes, you are correct. We've got 60 plus miles on the ground currently right now. The Coast to Coast Trail and the St. John's River to Sea Loop Trail are funded with Sun Trail monies, right? But as I mentioned last time I was here, there are certain elements that are not eligible for
Right.
Sunrail funding. So what the county would be looking at is using these funds for all those trail amenities, resurfacing, restrooms, signage, right-of-way acquisition, eminent domain, construction of trail on eminent domain. That's where the trail funding is necessary. So just looking at the 8 years out, we've got a trails construction master plan created. We're at 20 million already, and we're just 8 years out. So, any additional costs over the whatever dollar that you set aside, we'd have to find additional funding sources to build those assets after year 8, or find matching dollars to help, augment our $1 million set aside.
So can I ask a question? And I don't know who this, Brad, I'm going to direct this to you because I'm not sure who answered that. We know that the fund grew the first 20 years. We took in more money than what we thought we would. And so there's an annual allocation from the ad valorem that comes into the fund. Have we extrapolated that out like 10 years? Do we know how much? Because I'm wondering if then maybe we should on the trails thing, because we haven't raised that in light of what I hear my colleagues saying, wanting to be sure that we get those things done, maybe make that the trail set aside a higher number, that since it's a commitment of this county to a long-term trails program. But I don't want to take money out of other pocketbooks, but I think our numbers are pretty much growing a lot.
Yes, ma'am. When you say extrapolate, are you talking about the estimated
the
total
estimated
revenue
annual.
over 20 years?
Yeah, or over a year. How much in a year do we think we're gonna?
Well, right. So we were at, I think, roughly 7.5 million for Echo per year, roughly, if I remember correctly. I think, though, over the life of the 20 years, there's an estimate around 170 million. If I remember correctly, don't quote me or cite me as an authority for that number because Mr. Osowski's not here, but I think it's somewhere around there for both Echo and Forever, if I remember correctly.
Individually or it's together?
Individually.
Individually.
Because they both do a $0.5
That
mil.
is incredible, an amount of quality of life.
0.2, excuse me, 0.2 of a mil.
Okay, so perhaps colleagues, we look at increasing the set aside to 1.5. Would that?
It would help out
That would help?
tremendously, right?
And that would include the amenity piece of
Yeah,
this.
and to add to that, so yeah, as you mentioned, we're trying to build a world-class trail
Right.
system here in Volusia County, and it has built a lot of traffic into Volusia County from economic development, people from out of the area.
Right.
So having that extra $500,000 would go a long way to building up those amenities that we want to put on our trail system that we can't currently with the use of Sunrail funding.
Right.
Sun Trail funding.
Sun Trail funding,
right.
yeah, because I know that's complicated.
It would help out a lot.
Ms. Northey, the only caveat I would have to that, ma'am, as I remember too, is that remember this has to be levied each year by the council.
I
So they
know.
have the decision not to do it.
That's true. They
Right.
didn't do it this last year. They
Yes,
didn't
ma'am.
levy Echo funds. So I understand that.
Yes, ma'am.
So we could stipulate that 500,000 a year goes strictly to amenities.
You could do whatever you'd like, right?
But why would we do that if we can look at the amenities individually? In other words, if the funding is set at $1 million and maintains $1 million for the general funding, we want to add amenities. I don't see what the problem is at getting presented with the amenities by project, and then we commit our resources to that.
Because then they have to have that extra match, and it just complicates a long-term trails program.
Right.
It may, but it also evaluates the amenities along the way. In other words, it allows us to say, are they the right amenities? Do we agree with the amenities and the cost of those amenities? Versus putting it into one bucket, which is a 50% increase at $1.5 million, and saying, okay, amenities are included in that. I find that pretty loose and not as exact as adding the amenities on a project by project basis.
So let me add to what we're talking about here. So these are the assets that would not be covered under Sun Trail funding. So restrooms, which if you've been on our trail system. They're one of the highest recommended assets to be added to the trail system. Trail parking areas, which is the second highest, is, you know, we have 60 plus miles, but when folks want to access it, if they don't live locally, they're trying to find where areas that they can park at, that they can just hop on the trail. So parking areas are another key asset that Sun Trail won't pay for. Wayfinding signage, trail maps, mile markers, acquisition of right-of-way involving eminent domain, which is also in key areas, specifically north of Lake Beresford Park to Minnesota is where we're focusing on right now. And then construction of trails on those properties that were acquired with eminent domain. And the last piece is, which will be coming up in increasing fashion as we move through time, would be resurfacing the trails that have been in place for 15 or 18 years. And we're doing that on the section from Lake Monroe to Mansion Boulevard within the next 45 days or so. And that's about $120,000 on average per mile.
Okay. So I'm just going to say from my past experience with working with trails in the county that would there be a way, Mr. Bailey, for you to, I believe you're doing an annual program now, correct?
Yeah, and I have,
and
yeah,
so
we-
rather than have to come back every time, could there be an annual program that you would present to ECHO?
Absolutely.
So that we would have the ability, would that work for you, Jack?
It does, yes.
Okay.
I could easily do that.
I mean, I think that would probably be accountable to the citizens as well.
100%,
They
yep.
would know, it's
Yep.
just like a road program. Okay, we're going to resurface this section or we're going to put this amenity on there.
Yep.
And that way you won't have to bring it back to us, but one time, and then we'll hold you accountable
Right.
to get that done.
One time each year.
One
That's
time
right.
each year.
That's correct.
Does
I
that
like
work?
that
I do
idea.
too.
I like
And,
that
and
idea.
that would, in my, just float this out, it would be as we're approaching the budget season, because we start this season
Right.
in like March timeframe. So my recommendation would be, I would be coming before you in February. And I would say, here's what we have planned for the next year. Here's locations, here's our cost estimates. You say, you know, we're good to go for the 1.5 or whatever dollar amount you set aside, or, you know, decide to set aside. Then I would program that into our budget to be submitted to the budget office for
And that
inclusion.
would work with the regular ECHO calendar, because I think it's around February when we start going out and visiting sites. So that would work
Yep.
on our calendar as well.
Now,
So
let me get some clarity though. You were saying that we would establish the budget and then you'd work back into it?
Well, whatever dollar that you establish,
Why
I
would we establish a dollar? Why don't you come to us and tell us what you need? I don't see why we should establish a budget for you. You know what you need and you've
we've
got a
had
master plan.
budget for 20 years.
yeah, and my number would probably be higher than
Yeah,
than
Yeah.
what you-
Fair enough.
So
And fair enough. Yeah.
I would, I could see that this committee not establishing a budget presents problems in the future.
Yeah.
And that concerns me a little bit. However, and so I would be supportive of an annual set aside, whatever that dollar figure is. However, he comes forward to us in February and says, this is what I'm looking at. And really, you know, if, just for the sake of this conversation, you know, we've talked about 1.5, whatever the number is. But, you know, I could do XYZ because I'm out here, blah, 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 but I think it might be 1.7. Then it becomes part of the committee discussion whether that particular annual set aside needs to have been increased.
I could go with that. I really think though we need to let him know that he can look at a certain amount, because he's planning not just for this year, he's planning it's like a road program. Trails are like a road program.
We're currently looking at 8 years out.
Right. So
I think there should be a minimum established as a set aside.
I would recommend the 1.5 and see what county council comes up with.
I
I hear you. I just don't agree. I think you should present what you need, and it may be 1.5, it may be 1.7, it may be 1.4. But I think you have the obligation of showing us what you need, and then we decide, okay, that sounds appropriate, and we're up for it, and it goes through the process, and doing that annually makes a lot of sense. But I can't support establishing a benchmark that says, okay, you work back into $500,000, and if it's more, maybe you'll give that to me as well. I just don't like that approach.
But I hear you. I'm contemplating all of this. This is good discussion. But I also don't think, the program has been successful because the program can rely
Can rely on the
on
money,
monies.
right?
But the
And-
amenities is a separate deal. And
so
they're
ma-
relying on the $1 million now,
yeah.
and that's fine. I find amenities separate.
Okay, and
There-
I could go
Yeah,
along with
yeah.
that there needs to be, I think there needs to be a minimum set aside for the trails like there has been.
Yes.
And
for
I
$1 million.
also am supportive of some sort of dollar going towards trail amenities that is not necessarily part of the grant application cycle.
If you are going to have a and I would refer you to the River to Sea Loop Alliance letter, if you're going to have a world-class trail system that is economically viable, not just as a recreation element for the taxpayers who are paying for it, but to bring in people, cycling is a big deal, then you have to have amenities. And Tim has to have the ability to know that he can, just like a road program, that he can rely on X number of dollars to do these things that are necessary. So I understand, Jack, what you're saying, but I think that means that annually it's a short-term deal. He's got to figure out, okay, how much am I going to get from this group this year, when if he knows that he's going to get a certain amount of money, he can start planning and bring those plans to us just like any other ECHO project. But I'm very comfortable, maybe because I've been sitting up here before and I know the work that the staff does on trails and how effective they've been, that I have the confidence that that money to do not just resurfacing and buying property and laying asphalt, but that the Sun Trail money won't cover, because there is a number of things that they won't, that the amenities that go with that can be planned at the same time as part of a resurfacing project or an expansion project, or go back and do a renovation. So I'm very comfortable recommending a set aside of 1.5, with the understanding that you would bring back an annual work plan to us, just like we have an annual work plan for roads, but that road program is always 5 years out. So,
Mr. Chair, just for clarification, because I'm going to get the questions from staff later as to what we can use this money for. So what I'm hearing is there will be a number for an annual set aside recommended to the county council for approval, that annually a certain amount of monies will be set aside for use on bike trail expenditures, which would include maintenance, such as asphalting, whatever, resurfacing, whatever needs to occur in that aspect as Tim does his work. And you would like to make a recommendation to county council that annually, Mr. Bailey comes back and presents the next budget year's amenities that he would like to request also an additional direct expenditure from ECHO. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
no, that's not what I was, no.
Or you're saying everything should come out of whatever the set aside is?
I'm saying the 1.5. I mean, if there's others, and he certainly can, but I'm saying, for me, I would recommend a 1.5 set aside, with the understanding that there is a 5-year trails plan. Well, he's up to 8 now, but a trails plan that comes back to us annually. But just like the road program gets updated annually and comes back to council for approval, that he would come back to us and say, all right, we're doing this, we're going to resurface these many miles. We're going to put in a bathroom at this, not rest stop, trailhead, or we're going to add whatever we're going to add to, a picnic area to it or whatever. So I would, for me, it would be, would be all rolled in And certainly if there are other, I mean, I'm not eliminating if there's extra need there, then yeah, that for me, that would be okay, come back individually, but I just want him to be able to do a trails plan that isn't based on, I have to come back to Echo every month if I want to add something to this trails plan. I want him to be able to, I want to be able to plan, I guess is what I'm saying.
So then an annual expenditure, whatever, that requires an annual presentation to the ECHO committee
Yeah.
for the expenditure of those funds in the next budget year.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make it clear because I just want to make
Work
sure
for you,
everybody
Tim?
understands.
Was that, I mean, is that an issue
Yeah,
for you?
yeah. So if there was a set amount that helps me out, right?
Yeah.
And I fear, that there should be justification on
Yeah.
anything, over. And I could definitely do that to say, because there's going to come times where there's a big project, right? And it's going to be over the 1.5. And if we want to proceed and it's not a Sun Trail funded, I might say, if we want to move forward with this now, then this is what it's going to take.
Yeah.
And then you all can make the decision.
Yeah.
I have a comment.
Mm-hmm.
I support the trail systems. Whenever I travel around the country, trail systems, bike trails are all over the place. You drive into any state in the visitor center, there's usually brochures and advertisements for the trails that they have. A few years ago, Seminole County had a $25 million bond for bike trails on the ballot. It passed. They have a $91 million master plan on the table now.
I'm aware.
Yes.
I'm jealous.
Lake County has a beautifully master plan pamphlet, 200 pages long. I like what we're doing. One of the biggest complaints I've heard and I've had is that you have trails that just stop because we're doing it a little bit at a time. I was hoping 2 months ago when I talked to you and then you presented to the workshop that we were going to get that big figure, that we were going to get that master plan as to it's going to take us $50 million over the next how many years to finish this trail program. We need to pass some sort of allocation, but I'm still hoping that the county can somehow get that master trail plan finished and we actually know what we want to do in the future and how much it's going to cost, so we could go ahead and try and fund it.
So on that, Orange County just did a trails master plan, and to what you started to describe, it had a lot of different elements in there, like where they put their equestrian trails, how wide they're going to be, how long they're going to be, how they design them, how thick the concrete is. Those are the kinds of trails master plan information that was in the Orange County setup. So I think what you're talking about is actually a funding estimate on where all the trails are going to be. For me, that's building out the Coast to Coast Trail, that's building out the St. Johns River to Sea Loop Trail, as well as the connectors to our closest parks to the backbone of those two trail sections. I think that's really what you're asking for, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. That's easier to do internally. What I cannot comment on is there's a lot of unknowns on eminent domain, a lot of unknowns on right-of-way acquisition. So that's what makes what you just described difficult to give you 20 years out. This is how much it's going to cost. We can put some estimates together on all those areas, not knowing what the eminent domain or the right-of-way costs are going to be, because I know where the trail's got to be. It's got to be on those two corridors, right? So I can do that. It's just going to be an estimate.
Has there been some of the comments at some of the listening sessions from Big John and even Gary Libby talked about the potential, they would like to see a bike trail along the beach somehow. Has there ever been a possible plan to try and do that? I know that would be extremely expensive, but.
So right now the county's historically been focused on those two trail sections because they're over 200, or in our county, they're about 111 miles worth of trails for those two core trails. So we've been focusing on funding and connecting the gaps for those showcase trails or backbone of our trails. I think as we move through time, that would be an additional expense, an additional exploration. It's worthy. It's just we're trying to fund what we got planned before we stretch out too far and not complete what we started.
I don't know whether you've been to Daytona, but they have been doing amazing work on the Sweetheart Trail, which is not on the beach, but it is on the East Coast. And that trail, I never thought they'd be able to retrofit a trail through Daytona, but they did, right down Beach Street and into South Daytona. If you're talking specifically about beachside, is that what you're specific?
That's just a comment that
Oh,
keeps coming
okay,
up.
because I know Big is griped at me as well about not having, but the beach is a trail. I mean, it's hard sand. You can bike on it.
Yeah, and to your point, Mr. Alt, so the St. Johns River to Sea Loop goes north and south, but it's on the mainland side, not on the Barrier Island side. And when we looked to trying to realign that trail a little to the west, Sun Trail has a requirement that it has to be within 1 mile in diameter of the alignment going north and south. So in other words, I'm not going to mention the names, but there's a city that wanted to go way east, right, to get into areas where they wanted their economic development to go, and then it was a no-go. It was a non-starter for Sun Trail because it's going to cost too much money, and so they're really looking with that within a 1 mile diameter of the alignment north and south of the St. Johns River to Sea Loop is what they would fund free. It doesn't cost us anything. So if we, the county, wanted to do something like that, it would be on our own local dime or potentially the ECHO set aside to do that kind of thing.
I also just want to point out that, way back in 2000, one of the reasons for ECHO was that organizations in the county can use ECHO funds to bring in outside money. And the trail program has been the shining star of that objective. You brought in, I don't know how many millions of dollars with Sun Trail and outside money. The only thing that I do hope that we can somehow address in the upcoming years is trying to get together with some other partners in terms of hotel campgrounds. The trail system around Lake Apopka, it's a collaboration of the county, the city, and nonprofit, and they were able to get a nice, cool $1 million partnership with one of the hospitals down there. So there are possibilities out there, and hopefully we could address that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the key piece here is the ECHO funds, because that's really what I would be using to try to fund that. I just saw an email come across my desk earlier this week that Lake County, I don't know if you'll recognize Mike Stevens, he's, and they're pushing to model in Lake County what we've done here in Volusia County is a set aside for trail development, because they understand the value of trail. So it has gotten a lot of recognition. The program itself and the set aside has got a lot of recognition statewide. And me personally, I believe that's how we got awarded the Coast to Coast Priority Trail and the St. Johns River to Sea Loop Priority Trail, is because we had the $1 million commitment. That's what pushed us over the top to get that to be funded with Sun Trail monies with no matching dollars.
Yeah, I agree. Mr. Chairman, I'll make
Okay.
would you like a motion and see where it goes?
Yes, let's make a motion, because we
had a
have
lot of
two
work.
things. You have a lot of.
Well, I'm going to try to
things going on.
bring them up
between
both
trails and
together.
amenities.
So I'll make a motion that we increase the trail set aside from to 1.5 million, and include in that trail set aside the funding for amenities, pavilions, benches, mile markers, information signage is an eligible use under that set aside for trails.
As part of your motion, the requirement that an annual program.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me, yes, and that we direct the staff to come back with an annual work plan.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion? Oops, sorry.
I oppose that, and the
I do
reason
too.
why is because I think that it needs to be two separate votes.
So
Can you specify how you want the two separate votes? Do you want it trail set aside and then amenity set aside? Is that what you mean?
Correct.
Well, they're one and the same, candidly, for me, so I'd like my motion to be voted on, Mr. Chair, and see where it goes.
There's a motion and a second, so there is a motion
and
on
second.
the table, on the floor, I mean.
Okay. So let's take a vote. Let's do roll call on this one.
Jay Pendergast,
Yes.
Pat Northey,
Yes.
Jeffrey Alt,
Yes.
Sarah Lee Morrissey,
Yes.
Pat Patterson. He says yes. David Romeo,
Yes.
Reggie Santilli,
Yes.
Stacy Simmons,
No.
and Jack Surratt.
No.
Motion carry. Okay, moving on to number 3.
So it's clear that did you say that, Mr. Chair, motion passes 7-2?
Correct.
Okay, I was making sure for the record.
This number 3, of course, it's been tied up in this first conversation. Do you wish to include trail amenities?
Part of the motion.
Part of the motion?
Yeah, I included that as part of the motion.
Including the amenities within it.
So that's passed.
So that passed.
So now we're on to 4.
Okay. Okay, 4 should be less controversial. Do you wish to encourage synergy with Volusia Forever program?
Can I just get a clarification on what exactly that means? Because we've done that in the past. I mean, I can think of a couple of parks where we've purchased the property with Volusia Forever funding, and we have built the park amenities with Echo. And so I'm kind of curious what different things that we're seeing on that we haven't already done when we talk about. I'm all about synergy, and it's worked. It worked at Thornby. It worked at Green Springs. It's worked at we built, I think, down there at the farm down there off of 415, the ranch, Beck Ranch. We bought Beck Ranch with Volusia Forever funds, and we built amenities with Echo. So we've been doing that. What is different, Brad, here that we need to be aware of?
So I believe the point of this question was to see if there was direction from the committee to do different things. There is, as you described, some synergy that's already taking place. Okay. So we had the workshop. We wanted to get direction. If you would like to see anything else for us to bring back to you. If not, we can continue down the road that we're on.
Yeah, I think it's, when it says, I think the answer is yes. But then we say, would you like further discussion? And I think the answer is yes. So the 2 part is what's most important to me, because I think the first part's almost obvious. But I think there's a considerably more discussion to be had to really to get the synergies that we believe are there. And a good example of that is the small lot acquisition program and how that may fuse in nicely to a lot of the ECHO programs. I could see that working for us. So I think there's a lot to be said there, and I think there could probably be another workshop on that alone. So for my position is yes, and number 2.
And point taken. So now that we're both under one roof, under my roof, right, I'll communicate with both committees to make sure that we continue that synergy and discuss opportunities in the future.
I have just a comment on it. I don't really understand what the question even was. I mean, if the county could already come to Echo for grants. So I'm not sure how Forever and Echo work together. You know, if a grant is created, it's created. So, I mean, if there was a vote, I would vote no, because Echo is its own program. It was on the ballot as its own program. Forever was on the ballot as its own program. I don't see why committees should be working together. We're supposed to be independent.
Well, I'm a bit confused too, because it says, would you like to include it? But then it says, but we don't have the language. What exactly are we agreeing to include? You know, I mean, yes, I think we should all work together. That's an obvious, but what would you put in the guidebook? We're going to have synergy.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
That's
Or I think it's a generality. It's almost like an alliance more than it is a specific. And clearly there are two different entities that I think there could be kind of a master plan that coordinated both of these together. I think there could be that. I think ECHO needs one, like Forever already has one. And I think it goes to having a more proactive approach to building these programs up. But I think, you know, you get the benefit of what they're doing and how we connect to it, as it was described in our last meeting, where they said, oh, you know, they buy property and maybe we put amenities through their properties on ECHO projects, which are presented independently. So it's not like they're
Right.
happening automatically, but they're presented and they say, well, here we have a Forever property here, and they'd like to do, you know, place canoe rentals or some sort of activity there. It makes sense to me, but I think there's a lot to be discussed on the specific side.
But technically, they could do that already.
Yes, they could.
So,
Yes, they could.
so maybe we ask the language be addresses it. We encourage that the Echo and Volusia Forever projects continue to work to get together as they have in the past, and that we, I mean, I think I heard Jack say he wanted to have further discussion on it. So, I mean, is there any reason that we need to do anything with this language right now? Can we just have further discussion for the future? Maybe Volusia Forever and Volusia Echo ought to get together.
Yeah, and just
Again, and talk
as a reminder, so we really haven't acquired property since 2011. So
Right.
this is just I'm getting you to reaffirm that if we buy some properties with Volusia Forever funds, that if we have a project on it, we're going to bring it to you that we think that would be a good synergy.
So you're asking, would we be receptive?
Yes, sir.
But
Yeah.
the part I have a problem is with develop a standalone program in the future. I mean,
Yeah, that's a little.
what is this standalone program?
I would be against
Cooperation's
that.
one thing. Pardon?
I would be against a standalone program. I think the synergy that we discussed in our joint workshop together and the concept, it already exists, and the county staff has pursued it where it made some sense. And I think, you know, we're all supportive of that because it aligns with much of the ECHO mission, but I don't see a standalone program for that.
What is the standalone program? I'm not sure I understand what that means.
That's what we were. You want to, Bobby King?
So, you know, most of the comments that we're discussing right now came from the listening sessions. So if you go to page 14 of the document that you're looking at now, at the very end, it talks about the synergy with Volusia Forever. So this is where this has come from. Just want to give you some background as to why it's being brought before you to discuss today. It came from the listening sessions.
Okay. Mr. Patterson has something to say. Can I jump in, Pat? It's not working. Hold on.
Stumbling here over a $10 word of synergy, but maybe you should just focus on the difference between may and shall that they may have a relationship with the Volusia Forever program as opposed to maybe shall have that relationship. So I think that's just what you need to do is take that word synergy out of there and just say, do you wish that Volusia Forever and Echo have a relationship? Possibly.
Yeah, Bobby, I appreciate you pointing out page 14 and the specifics associated with it, because what we discussed in workshop was a little bit different than the specific associated with the living shoreline. And I did want to discuss living shorelines as we heard that during listening sessions and where that kind of fits in. But I don't know that I was seeing that under question 4. When I heard that issue in our listening session, I almost was hearing it as, can this be an eligible grant application?
And Mr. Chair, we can revisit it. We don't need to make a decision on this if the committee doesn't feel they have the adequate information or comfortable at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think number 4 is going to do very well if we have to take a vote on it. I think it needs to be reconsidered.
Well, I hear all of us saying we understand the relationship between the two programs and the extent they can complement each other, but we're not in any position today to add anything in the guidebook about it. That's what I'm hearing.
I think that's accurate.
I agree
Shirley.
with that.
think
I mean, we agree we want to work together, but
Yeah.
what are we putting in the guidebook?
Yeah.
So I think we should vote on that. I don't think we should leave open items. I think we should just, this can come back.
Well, the problem is I don't like the way the no is stated. Because the no says, if no changes would be made to permit this type of activity. Yeah, that's not exactly what we're saying. We're saying this type of activity already exists to a certain extent, and we're supportive of that. And for that reason, we don't think we need changes right now.
I think that's fine without additional support, information from staff, knowing if there's something out. Brad, is there anything out there that we're not aware of that's already happening or you would like to see happen between the two programs? Because now that the programs come under one leadership person, I'm much more comfortable knowing that if there is something, if there's an item that is synergetic, that you can bring that back to us at any time, and that we've done that in the past. We've had those kinds of items, but if there's something specific, I'm happy to talk about it. I just don't know what it is today.
Where would you put the living shorelines?
And I agree. I think I just wanted direction that you believe in the synergistic relationship. I'll share that with Volusia Forever and bring items to you as we see fit.
Okay. Does that work for everybody? Works for me.
Okay.
Good job.
So we're not going to take any action on this. Okay. Number 5, do you wish to prioritize funding considerations projects?
I don't
know
understand
what that
that
means.
question. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't, what do we mean by priorities? I'm not sure I understand.
So it is my understanding that in the past, there has been some discussion on the board, and this also speaks to Mr. Surratt, your want for proactivity. So the board in the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jill, has identified that these are priority areas for projects and sought applications for those priority areas. Is that correct, Jill?
Yes, it's like wanting to have more projects on the west side. You know what I mean? The kinds of things that you've spoken with. You wished you could do this, or you wished maybe there were more
we never put them in any-
environmental programs.
Right.
You would like to see more, that kind of thing.
Yeah, but we never put them in any kind of priority. I
No,
mean,
you have not.
right. And so, if we're saying, for instance, we're saying, okay, these projects we think should have priority. For instance, a location like Mosquito Lagoon, should that be a priority project of sorts? Well, that might be interesting. So if that's what we're saying on priorities, that we could draw priorities, I'm not sure how it plays through the ranking process. In other words, does that mean that they in fact fall differently?
Or do they get extra points?
They get some
Yeah.
extra points. I don't understand.
Or
how
that
that-
I think what it means is that they'd be evaluated outside of the grant cycle.
Is that what it means? 'Cause
Oh,
that's
okay,
different
well, that'd be
than-
interesting too, but I didn't.
I mean, is that where we're going here? Because why not go through the competitive grant cycle?
Right, and if
I
they
think,
did,
you know,
then what would
so-
the priority be?
Exactly. So that's the way I'm kind of trying to decipher what this means.
So Bobby and I saw the question differently as well. So it's really up to you. We're seeking your guidance on this. And so it could be that we say that these are priority areas and they get extra points, or it could be we'll accept projects on a year-round basis. It's going to be.
Do that. You know what? I'll just put this out here. The program has worked pretty darn well for the last 20 years. And it seems to me that the tweaks, and I understand where this is a new opportunity. This is an opportunity to review everything. But perhaps rather than try to figure all of these out now, it might be beneficial if we look at these maybe independently at each meeting, we have a discussion about does this make sense, and then make a recommendation on it. Because I'm sitting here, my mind is like boggled right now trying to think, okay, because I'm looking at the next one, and the next one's almost as confusing as the way this one is. I get that. I mean, I'm one who has said we ought to be doing a regional blueprint for Volusia County and maybe that's where we start. What are our needs in Volusia County as far as echo needs, and go from there. But
I think it's premature. I don't
I think
think
that's probably what I'm
I
trying
don't
to
think
say,
we're
Jack.
at a point of prioritizing the projects, but I think
Right.
what we need is a plan. And I think the plan would be, it may be regional as well as it may be particular focus within the E, C, H, and O. And so we say, how do we do that? And I think we should look at it as a comprehensive plan and then take a more
Yes.
aggressive approach to get there. But I don't think we can do it through priority today. And
Yeah,
do we
'cause I
believe
don't
in
think we know
priorities?
what we
I guess
don't
if
know.
that's what that means,
Yeah.
okay. I believe more in planning and a
Yeah.
roadmap going
Yeah.
forward.
Can
That's
I
where
offer you
we're at.
just,
And who's going to prioritize this?
I
mean,
I think we would have to. We would-
Who's going to make the priorities? Is it staff? Is it the
Well, I-
board? Is it the voters?
I think
mean,
the
who the
plan,
heck's gonna
I think the
decide
plan
what's a
would lay out,
priority?
I think the plan would lay out what we think, and we would vote on what we think the priorities are. I think we would make that
But I
judgment.
think we would need
But
to
we're
have
certainly not there
a plan.
now.
No, we're not there now.
Um,
But I'm not afraid to go there. I'm
No,
just
and
not there
I think what I'd like to see is we come back, with you guys, putting it together and saying, hey, here are different ways to approach this. Is here kind of a master plan that's associated with Echo alone. There may be some connections to Forever in general. And then we say, okay, with that, and we see these projects as important and should be prioritized in some fashion, then we either give it more points on a ranking basis, something like that. So, in a general question of should there be priorities, I guess the answer is yeah, but we don't know what they are because we need a plan to get there.
here's another way to look at it. I don't know if this is helpful or not, but again, looking at the listening session comments, and just a reminder, the Ormond Loop project that came before you a couple months ago, that was outside of a cycle. It was a project that came up out of nowhere, and you needed a way to be able to approve that. And I think the opportunity here is just to put something in your guidebook that says you could prioritize something at any time outside of a cycle if it were within your.
Well, that's
That's just another way to look at it. you don't have to say what your priorities are, but as long as you have something in your guidebook that says that if a priority came up anytime, you could take action on it.
Mr. Chair, if I may, we'll pull this and we'll discuss it further as a committee, and try to flesh it out a little more.
Right. And what I would say is, under the historic, we do have emergency grants that we give to historic projects, but only to historic projects.
And
So
only
it's
under
always-
emergency
and only in
stabilization. Yeah.
emergencies.
Well,
yeah,
So
let's-
I see this like the loop. And I was kind of surprised that since they found the historic stuff, that was the avenue I would have thought they would have gone as far as justifying it getting onto the agenda.
well,
Because they had a clear path.
Well,
that
let's,
they didn't take.
they did, no, let's,
You know.
let's, I mean, it was a direct county expenditure. This, I think the discussion coming to this committee was basically, we wanted to put our stamp on it. But fact of the matter is, it was a direct county expenditure. They chose to do it and they made the action. It's made for an awkward circumstance, but that's not, I mean, the county council has that latitude pretty much anytime they want. We're trying to be more methodical about it relative to a bigger plan and creating priorities. But we don't need to open the door for that because I think it can be done by the county council directly.
And I think we should accept staff's recommendation that we take no action on this item.
Agree?
Okay, moving on to number 6. Do you wish to use grant funds in support of project management and/or upgrades?
I thought they were like two different things. So I'm on another one on this project management. We heard from some of the not-for-profits that project management costs, it would be nice to have those costs be able to be paid. And I'm okay with that. That would not be an issue for me. I'm not sure about what the and or upgrades mean though.
No.
They seem like they're two different
I don't understand the upgrades
Yeah, I don't know
question, but and I think we can get some clarity. But relative to the project management, generally I understand the cost. That seems to be difficult to track though. I kind of where they say, oh, project management, there's gonna be a line item that's dropped in there in the grid that I don't know. I see it as a cost. I see it as real, and I want to help the nonprofits. I think more than we are now. But to put project management in there, I think to track it's going to be very difficult, and I think it's probably more trouble than it's worth. Upgrades is a whole nother story, and I'm not sure what that means.
Can I offer some clarity? So these are two items that have not been allowed to be used as a match in the past. And so by putting this in here, you would be allowing these items to be used as match. So if somebody was bringing you a project that included project management as an item that is an expense but can also be used as match, that's new. That's something you haven't allowed in the past. And upgrades, you could look at it as, let's say you have a project that has an item that is now going to be ADA accessible or something. You could allow the additional expense for that to be used as match.
Would an example be where we're talking about air conditioning units or economies, things like that?
That's maintenance,
Okay.
and in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
And so you can also talk about that if you'd like. I mean, this is
Well,
it's
I'm
totally
just
up to
thinking,
you. That has been brought up in the listening sessions.
right, it was, and it's not here clearly, and so maintenance to upgrades, for instance, an upgrade could be to make it more environmentally appropriate as an air conditioning unit, and that could be contemplated as maintenance, or it could be contemplated as an upgrade. And so, I don't know where the generalities are.
Could we put, as far as project management, because I understand what you're saying, Jack, could we have right into the regulations that up to 1% of a project would be applicable for, and I don't know what that number is at all. I
I
have
don't
no-
either. I just remember when we were talking about it, we were talking about, I spend so much of my time on this, and I just thought, wow, project management, I spend, 15% of my time on managing ECHO projects, so that should go into project management. I don't know. I just,
Yeah.
I had a hard time I had a hard time really getting that down to a finite number. And it seemed, as much as I wanted to help them, it just seemed like it may not be appropriate to put in there, and maybe we can help them in other ways. But that just seems hard to get to. And,
Chairman?
Right, and like you said,
project-
spend time filling out any kind of application.
there you
And
go.
that's just the cost of doing
That's
business.
project management.
I'm sorry, but why should somebody be reimbursed for filling out a loan application?
Can I also point out that the actual vote that we've gotten from election, it does not state anything about maintenance. We want to really stick to the purpose.
And for the construction, there actually is usually some, some project manager specific to constructing the building. I think what they were talking about was,
It's ongoing.
yes.
Talk about ongoing
Maintenance.
maintenance is what they right?
That's different.
Upgrades could be,
Can you put your mic on? I can't hear you. Thank you.
The ACA got a grant for insulation for the sound in the lobby. It was glass. And the museum in DeLand got a grant to upgrade their HVAC systems. I think not-for-profits need that.
yeah, I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm not sure why we don't have that already. Really, I mean, upgrades, if that's what upgrades are, right, then I think we should have upgrades.
Well, and that's why they were approved, is because they were showing this improvement, environmental reasons, so there was a reasoning behind.
So isn't it already there? I mean, you're asking if we want to change it to upgrades. I thought. Brad, you see it's not there? Just testing you, Brad.
Yeah. So I will explain to you as I understand it. And if those improvements have been funded in the past, then yes, they're part of it. The way I understood it is we've had some, from the listening sessions, we've had some people come back and say, you helped us before, we've got this ECHO grant, but now we need to upgrade the grant, the project that you helped us do. The way that our rules are written now, that unless it expands the user group or expands the audience, that would not be eligible. So the
It should be
example would,
eligible. So if that's the case, then I'm looking for the up.
I'm going to disagree. In the past, if a building was already in existence, needed upgrades, that was allowed. However, within the application, the organization is responsible for building an organization to maintain that building. They're supposed to have the management, the endowment fund, they're supposed to come up with a complete management plan to maintain that facility. Problem is that a lot of these organizations have not been doing that. And when you open up the doors to say, we are now going to fund the replacement of an HVAC system that hasn't been maintained properly, that's not acceptable. If the architect gave you a punch list to maintain the roof, put up a parapet cover, to seal the building, that you have a maintenance list that you are not doing, how do you track that? If you have an old building that was built in 1992 or 1975 that needs upgrades, that's fine. But if we're supposed to be funding projects for generations, that's why the 30-year and 40-year markers were listed. When you start reducing that, we're not funding generation, we're not funding a project with a solid leadership team and a solid organization to make sure that facility is with us for the next several generations. So I'm totally opposed to maintenance for facilities that we've already funded.
And
to vote on this as this is a format upgrade? Is that it?
Well, I'm not sure the language in here because we've been talking about a lot of different things. I understand where Jeff is coming from, and I think we could go cite examples of projects that didn't take care of buildings the way they were supposed to. So
Give examples otherwise. Because I can think of circumstances that could present itself, which was not over neglect, but
okay,
in
so
fact, true upgrade.
like what?
Well, for instance, let's use the air conditioning condition here. The air conditioner is actually faulty for not getting the job done clearly, okay, and that in fact you can't do the job in an appropriate way. And so they want to replace the air conditioner. Doesn't bring any more people to their facility, and they did nothing wrong along the way. I think that's a good project for air conditioning. And so it's just a different way of looking at it. But I see that as an upgrade, and I see it as appropriate to an ECHO project.
But why wouldn't an upgrade be sufficient?
I mean, it might be.
You're
It might
allowed
be.
to do that under the same.
Oh, well, you said repair.
You're not supposed to, you can't, maintenance is not included. And for instance, when the air conditioning is being approved, it's because the new system going in is substantially different. It's state of the art. It's a museum. It was better for the quality of the art. It was more fuel efficient. You know, it's a modern system compared to what they had when the building was constructed. So that was perfectly allowable under the guidelines as they are now.
Okay, well then why are we talking about
So,
this?
but if you're just talking about changing out air handlers,
I'm not really saying that. This upgrades, it's not just
it needs
trading
to
out
be
here.
substantially better. If
Yeah,
it's
but
environmentally better, a more clean system.
then I'm not sure the question should be answered because in effect,
The method is already there to get that.
that's not the question you had, right, Brad?
The way I understand it is if it is an initial grant application for an upgrade, it's acceptable. But if they come back, if they had a grant, they're coming back for a second one for the same project, but an upgrade, it would not be eligible unless it expands the user group, is my understanding. Again, I've been on the job 6 days, so I'm trying my
Come on,
best.
Brad, pick it up.
If I could just offer some possible clarification. So say in the case of a museum, the Land Museum was built in 1992. Built with a specific air conditioner for a community theater museum. So the museum wants to upgrade the facility to handle higher end artwork. This is 20 years later. In order to qualify for certain exhibits, you have to make sure that your air, your temperature is between 68 and 69 at all times, or whatever it is. It's very, very precise. Something like that, I would consider an upgrade. However, there's another facility built by ECHO that after 14 years is talking about a new roof already. That's mind-boggling.
Well, but we can judge on that. That's reasonable, discussion. It sounds to me like we have it kind of in place. I think the requirement that it bring more capacity, if you will, I find that to be a clause because upgrade question. So I would go for the upgrade, but I understand completely what you're saying, Jennifer, and I hate, neglect, that we're drawing in dollars for neglect. I don't like even the thought of that, but I think upgrades make sense. And so as you understand it, Brad, I'm agreeable to upgrades. We go beyond requiring that access to
Also, you have to understand that voting yes or no on this, we've lumped project management and upgrades together in
Different.
the same.
And again, I have both no and yes in this, so I don't, I don't. Project. Excuse me. We can do that. Take project management out of it. And particularly if project management is included in the construction element itself,
Well, it is.
then
That's covered under
yeah,
construction.
then why would we, I don't know. I have a problem identifying ongoing factor. It seems inappropriate.
The way I see it, we have a couple of choices. We can take a vote, or we can say no action and have this revised and brought back to us, or we can make a motion to strike project management.
Well,
What's the board's pleasure so we can?
well, like you said, in construction, the project management is in there. Maintenance part, I agree with Jeffrey was talking about. I mean, it's just going to have to be, the presentation that the person makes. I mean, we got to take case by case basis. If we know that, how old's the roof? 15 years, why do you need a new one? What happened? Did a tree fall on it? Was there a hurricane or anything like that? Or something, I mean, in air conditioning units, like you said, you got to keep within a certain temperature. I mean, if we're not meeting those and it is 20 plus years old, I can understand that. But if it's 5 years old, that's a whole totally different story. Or if we know they haven't maintained that building or maintained the equipment. And your comment about, a larger base, drawing a larger base, museums or anything like that. If it's at a point where the air conditioner is 20 years old and now they want a new exhibit, but the only way they can draw a bigger base for mummies or whatever, they need a new air conditioner. That will draw a bigger base. So there's a lot involved. I think it's a case by case situation that we really need to sit back and talk about and ask the questions that we're here to ask. Spending the taxpayers' money. So I think that it's a really case by case budget for me anyways.
These are just suggestions. You can, if you all are clear on project management and you wanted to make that recommendation, you can do so. I'm just suggesting that you consider it because we are going to potentially go into a grant cycle soon. And we would want that to be clarified before we start the next grant cycle. If that's your decision or would like to consider that, doesn't have to be lumped in with anything else. Just a thought.
I would like to make a motion.
Good.
That no changes be made at this time for the project management or upgrades.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, one opposed. Motion carries. Okay, now-
Did we get a vote from Pat Patterson?
He says aye.
Get to the fun part. Back to number one.
Let me ask, yeah, I really hate to stretch things out, but I was thinking in terms of other decision points and perhaps they come along as we discuss this other one, which has the meat to it. But I wanted to mention that there are others that may come along that I didn't see along the way. Okay, so I just wanted to put that in there when I bring them up at the end.
Okay, reviewing the recommended changes. Number one, increase standard grant from 400 to 600,000 annually. What do you want to do? Do you want to do yes, no? Make a motion, please.
I'll make the motion that we increase the standard 400 to 600,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number two, recommendation, reduces the percentage of cash match required for nonprofit organizations. The percentage should be reduced from 50% and is dependent on the following guidelines for not-for-profits.
I just wanted to ask, how did you arrive at this specific recommendation?
As I recall, it's always come up that not-for-profits have a very difficult time meeting the match when it's 50-50.
Mhm.
And it's always been discussed, how do you level the playing field or help out? So it was recommended that there be a contribution level adjusted for the the size of the not-for-profit.
But I think the amounts, the percentages themselves, I think were arbitrary. We just, the idea was to give an advantage. And one thing that
said like 40%, it could have been 36%.
it could have been any, in fact,
It was done by the former Echo board.
But does this work for nonprofits?
we don't know. But I tell you, my position.
What's not working is the way we have it now.
I understand that part, but I want to help them. And I just want some level of assurance.
The ones
that-
I've talked to, Sarah Lee, I've talked to a couple of them, the smaller ones, and I've said, check this out and let me know. And they've been comfortable with this.
Okay.
I'm thinking that if it turns out not to be, they'll be back telling us that, we got to redo it. But the ones I talked to looked at it and said, yeah, that looks like that's much better than what they have.
Yeah,
right
we
now.
heard that in a listening session.
Yeah.
My personal view is that we should go further. And so I'm going to just throw it out there. And again, it's arbitrary, these amounts, but I see it as really two categories, not three categories. And you've got the kind of the over 500,000. I think 40% is a good number there. But I'm more interested in trying to help the smaller nonprofits. And so if it's under 500,000, which is what I'd like to lump as a total category, I'd like that to be 30%. The reason for it is that hopefully we pull the guys up that are in between. So basically, it's a minor change, but it would be two categories instead of three. And it would be 30% for the under 500,000. I'm sorry, a match at 20% instead of 30. 20% for under 250, right?
I disagree with this whole change.
I agree.
Oh, not even a remote possibility of reducing this. Let's go back to 2000 when ECHO was based on the state grant system. The state grant system is a 2-to-1 match. If you bring us $2, we'll give you $1. ECHO reduced that to a 1-to-1 match to help out nonprofits, saying that this is local money. We also had a very clear understanding of what big projects we wanted to do. We don't really have that right now. We've reduced it to, okay, so it's a 1-to-1 match. Other ways that we've reduced that match is allowing land match, equipment match, all of these other matches. You build facilities with cash. If your organization cannot raise cash, you cannot operate. That's simple. You're going to have problems. In this internal audit that happened, I spent 2 hours with the auditor in May. Chairman Brower and I met with him for 2 hours. I had a problem with the audit being called a program audit to begin with. And the auditor even said he looked at it more as a policy audit, not a program audit. If you're going to do a program audit, as Gary Libby said, you need to look at projects, what was promised, what came out of it. Are they maintaining themselves? What were the goals? There's a whole list of things that should have been looked at. The internal audit did not do that. The internal audit looked at policy. Did we follow policy? I have no problems with what the audit said, what it did not say. There is a reason why right around 2000, nonprofits fell off the cliff in terms of applying for ECHO when they applied for Audit. One being that the major nonprofit projects that we had on the table were, and we were having a lot of problems with those nonprofit organizations. One being the News Journal Center, which was our first super grant, went out of business. That never even came up in the audit. That's kind of surprising to me. $2.4 million. Now, that project went out of business because they went over budget by $13 million in construction. And Tippin Davidson had the News Journal Center put up the money to finish it. Well, Cox Communications sued the News Journal Center, won, and that entire organization was pretty much wiped out. Now, if you look at that grant, we were definitely on the right track. And the money raised for the News Journal Center by the nonprofit was very, very good. They had a very good board. They raised money. Within the grant, they had promised a $3 million endowment fund. They had achieved that. The endowment fund was going to be able to cover all of the operational expenses for the facility. The facility went out of business basically because of the lawsuit. Now, unfortunately, because of that, we lost not only Seaside, which was the professional theater organization that had started in 1977, that led to the downfall of the London Symphony Orchestra. In 2000, remember, we had a professional theater organization, we had the LSO, International Music Festival. We were well on our way to being a very strong cultural county. We keep reducing the rates, the requirements. All of these organizations formed before ECHO, and they were doing rather well. Obviously, they're having a little bit of problems, but as soon as people started seeing ECHO as a funding source, they stopped applying for other grants. During one of the listening sessions, one of the theaters said that because of the ECHO's limit of $400,000, they had to break their grant into two different phases. Well, my question to them is, why didn't you apply for a cultural facilities grant with the state of Florida? Why didn't you apply for other grants? They didn't do that. Nonprofits are looking solely at ECHO as their funding source. They have to be able to provide match money. If they don't provide match money, I'm not sure how they're going to sustain themselves in the future. I mean, that's so News Journal Center went out of business. The Athens Theater went from a $1.5 million restoration project to $10 million. The Creative Arts Cafe, the Cultural Arts Center in DeLand was built in 1992 for the community theater, for the museum. As soon as the Athens got open, the community theater failed. I'm not sure if you really realize that. But the community theater, the touring children's program, the senior program all failed because they could not sustain themselves. So we lost the News Journal Center as a professional venue. We lost the Athens as a professional venue. And county council at that time said Why are we funding organizations that can't sustain themselves? That was the question that came to the board and that was going around. So I'm throwing that out there so you have some historical perspective. I'm voting no on all of this. A one-to-one match with all of the different possibilities of coming up with that match from a nonprofit is plenty.
Really good information.
Yeah, it was very good information for all of us. Thank you, Jeffrey. And in additional information, who was on the board in the past and who's discussed this, you know, I would like to get some of their insight. Anybody? And, you know, I think it's, for me anyways, you know, I think the one-to-one match stands until, you know, maybe a few years down the road to see all the projects that were presented and maybe why we're not getting projects presented, learning more about the non, you know, for-profit facilities. But some of the filtering on, you know, I know this came up because I guess the committee probably noticed that not-for-profits were.
We heard from not for
And
profit.
not only did we hear from them, but we weren't getting presented projects. I mean,
You
essentially,
weren't getting presented
They
projects?
they are not even applying. We're not getting applications for nonprofits. And the idea was that basically municipalities were picking up all of the projects. And so and in that compounded itself because we weren't also getting any cultural projects, some stuff like that. Cities didn't own it. So the idea was, how can we better do it? And then we had a workshop in which we said, what was the biggest deterrent, okay, to the small nonprofits and doing this? And it was identified quite clearly that it was the match. And they do have skin in the game. So even though it's not one-to-one in this plan, it is at least advantageous to them. And we think would bring more nonprofits to ECHO, which we think would facilitate the public interest. I know there's been issues in the past where off that doesn't surprise me. But that, you know, I've seen it in the course of the 3 years I've been here where we're just not getting any interest on their part. And so if we maintain what we're doing today, we're not doing anything different. I don't think we get any nonprofits coming to us. And I think that that's unfortunate based on our principles.
And David, this was done prior to the referendum. We were getting a lot of criticism about where the dollars were going. And there was some thought that changing this might help people feel more comfortable, that it wasn't just a program that was a public works program for the city for their parks and recreation. Obviously, the public liked the way we did things before because they overwhelmingly supported ECHO and Forever. So I'm really torn on this one because I know there are a number of viable small not-for-profits who could benefit. I also know what Jeffrey is saying because we've been around a long time and dealt with some of those disasters and they don't feel good,
right?
And the public doesn't like them. So I'm pretty torn on this one. I don't know that I would take it. I originally supported the 40, 30, 20, and I think I'm still there. I certainly don't want to go down to just 40 and 20. So,
well, is there another way, Jeffrey, that maybe you've heard of or different
Yeah.
percentages that you could see work?
I was going to bring this up at the end because of goals for 2022. I don't want to start complicating things, but one of the questions I always get asked down in Orange County when we start reviewing grants is, so you guys still doing 4 different grant programs with one application? We're not the only county to have environmental grants, cultural grants, historical grants, outdoor grants, but we're the only entity that tries to cram them into one application. I really believe that a goal for 2022 needs to look at having each letter of ECHO have their own application, have their own requirements. We've talked about how do we address historic preservation more. That's been lacking. There's a way to do that if we have its own application. Same thing with environmental. There's a lot of good ideas coming out on environmental, but how do you get a user use out of a living shoreline? We have to look at that in a different way. We're not going to be able to fit that into our application. There's also, if you look at the state grants, there is a very specific small facilities grant program for $50,000 or less. And that's something else that we could look at as a goal for 2022. The other thing I want to point out with reducing even the top tier to 40%, you do realize that Stetson University falls into that category. You do realize that Florida Hospital falls into that category. So you have nonprofits that have used this program over and over again, that we've now just made it so much easier for them to get taxpayer money. That's a real problem with me.
So what you're saying, there's no ceiling on the not-for-profits. I mean, this 500,000 deadline of 500,000 or greater, that 500,000 or greater could be really greater, a lot greater than 500,000 that their expenditures and expenses, or it could be, but their revenues. I hear what you're saying about that. I had not thought of it that way before. That I guess I'm thinking not-for-profits that are true. I know they're all not-for-profits, but truly cultural organizations that were struggling to meet the requirement. I like your idea of maybe looking at how we provide applications, because I think that the application process hasn't been reviewed in 20 years really, and we probably ought to do that. I really am struggling with this one. I voted for it before. I think that there are not-for-profits out there who could, small ones who could benefit. But now
There's also
I'm confused what to do.
I want to point there's a lot of grants, including the board that I sit on in Orlando, where you must have taxpayer ownership involved in the equation. Now, some people
What does that mean?
don't like that. Okay, so taxpayer ownership means, okay, if you look at Lock Haven Park, where Orlando Rep, Shakespeare is, all those. City of Orlando owns Lock Haven Park. Each organization has a lease with the city for $1 a year to operate out of there. Okay, so now that's the city's involvement. They're giving this facility to the nonprofit. Now the nonprofit is responsible for all building upgrades, renovations, operations, all of that. However, when you get into fundraising, what makes a foundation or even a grant review board look more favorably on one organization as opposed to another? If a nonprofit is constantly struggling to pay their bills, do you think someone really wants to give them $500,000 or $100,000? However, if you are owned by the city, even though you may be maintaining it independently on your own with a 50-year lease, because you have ownership from the city or the county, your credit rating goes up. If you have an endowment fund, that's a great way for, to have that targeted annual fund drive to just get in people that have supported you for years, have them put you in their will for $10,000 or whatever. They want it. They want to see that endowment fund. They want to see that long-term solid ownership of the facility. The Winter Garden Theater in Winter Garden is owned by the city, but the nonprofit runs the theater. That association has turned that small 299 seat theater into one of the examples used statewide for how to restore a historic theater and to operate. And Lock Haven Park in Orlando is just a great example of that public-private ownership. We have historic buildings that are on that historic endangered list that I hope we could look at next year. If we are able to convince, I think the cities need to get involved. The cities need to take ownership of some of those facilities. The Dutton House needs the city of DeLand to own that building, so we could get that, finished somehow.
So Jeffrey, would you feel what if we eliminated the top tier, and on the lower tiers, you still would want to see a one-to-one match? And here's, I don't know where the Gateway Center stands, but I'm thinking about that group of wonderful community activists who said that they wanted to get something done, and they did. And to me, I know how much that center is appreciated, and I'm just using them as an example, as in their community. And so reducing the match for an organization that is truly grassroots, because that's what they are, and there's a number of them around this county that are grassroots. And we're not a rich county. We don't have a Disney, and we don't have the kinds of places that they have in Orange County that provide large people that either have their own money that they donate. We don't have those kind, at least on the west side of the county. We don't on the east side. Even the east side's had its issues. I'm just wondering if there is a place where we can look at this and try to provide some kind of help for those not-for-profits, those smaller not-for-profits, because it has been a concern that we heard repeatedly over the years, that you weren't putting money into the not-for-profits, you're giving all the money to the cities. So I don't know where the line is, and I'm not sure. Anyway, I'm thinking out loud here.
No, I agree. I think if we've heard from them and it's an issue, we need to act on it. But I see where Jeffrey's coming from. And, when he says Stetson or, Halifax Health or whoever it may be, that's concerning.
That was not the intention. Those were not the intention.
Right. That was not the intention, but the way it's written, they fall into this category. So that's something that, needs to be rewritten. And
I think we need to at least cap it.
or can it be rewritten? To fall under, and maybe it's not 40 or 30, or maybe it's a higher percentage. I just throwing that out to all of you.
I think if you get rid of the top tier, that's a start.
Okay.
But I want to go back to what I would like to see as a goal for 2022, where we really look at all of these programs. So if we approve this or any changes now, it's for this year, and we're going to revisit it next year. And then we could really address the small nonprofit.
So you're saying less than 500,000 you would start out with?
Yeah, that's, I believe, what you're saying, that operating revenues or expenses
Or less than
500,000. Yeah. Was that what you're saying, Jeff?
That's what I would,
Okay.
that's how I would, start.
Okay.
I like that idea.
I do too.
What if we make it 50% to see how it goes?
What do you mean?
Instead of a one-to-one match, they only have to come up with 50% of what they're asking for.
There are so many ways for them to get that match.
Especially.
Well, yeah, there are so many ways for them to get that match without actual cash.
But you're saying if we make it less than 500,000, you're saying bringing it instead of 1-to-1, 50%.
That's not what.
And then
Mhm.
allow the full purchase price of the appraised value of the land to be used as cash match.
What were you saying, Pat?
Gonna be buying land.
No, that's the land that they have. They own if they've never used it before.
Well, in the case,
My personal-
Gateway Center sits on state land, so that's not really their land too. No.
My personal opinion for grants in general, when it was reduced from a 2-to-1 to a 1-to-1, I believe it should all be cash. That's always been my opinion.
It does guarantee sustainability.
That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's how I feel.
Percent cash match required.
Okay, well, would someone like to make a motion to approve, reject, or amend this change?
I could try and make a motion. I'm actually not. What did we just find?
You were saying 500,000 or less.
500,000, okay. And are we talking about the 30%?
I think we talked about just eliminating the top tier on recommended change.
Yes.
I think that would be.
And keep it at 30 and 20.
Yeah. Keep it.
And we do get to review this every year.
Yeah.
Do you see that, Jeffrey?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'd like to make a motion to reduce the percentage of cash match required for nonprofits operating with revenues or expenses with less than $500,000. With a 50% overall match.
Well, that's what they're at now.
50% of what?
I don't know.
It says it's 50% now. And so the proposal here was
To 30.
was to
30.
reduce to 30.
And then the 250 is
And if-
20,
Yeah.
less than 250. Can you make the motion to just eliminate bullet number 1
Well, there you go.
and accept bullet number 2 and 3? Would you be comfortable with that? Or I can make that motion if you're not.
Why don't you make that motion?
I'll make that motion. Then I'm recommended change to that we eliminate bullet number 1 and support bullet number 2 and 3.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
But
And
I
Pat?
really do want to, I like your idea of different applications for the different sections, because I think that is going to be needed if we're looking at expanding on some things.
Yeah, I really like that as well.
Yeah.
You're talking about separate applications for each one.
Yeah.
Which is great. What did Pat, did you get Pat's vote?
Is there a reason we don't see?
Aye.
them up there? Aye, okay.
Well, we've made it all the way to number 3. Okay, number 3 includes language that requires staff internal final completeness review to include if a project has public accessibility regardless of anticipated future phases.
Move approval. I think that one really has
Second
to.
that.
Yeah.
Second that.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Number 4, includes language that requires the clean hands search is maintained in the project file.
I would move approve. I mean, I didn't know that it wasn't,
How could
so,
it not be?
Yeah,
so I think that's kind of a no-brainer.
second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Number 5.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we're on change number 5. Echo grant agreements to be executed by the applicant prior to the county approval. If approved, county council will execute the agreement on the date of approval. Ensure projects have the same grant requirement deadlines.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second. I'm guessing that just means they have to be ready to go on day 1 after the council. Yeah, okay.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 6, includes language that any extension requiring more than an additional 365 days beyond the project time period will only be reviewed 2 times per year.
We have discussion on that.
Okay.
I liked the comment that cancel all grants that are more than 1 year behind schedule. Feel like new to the board, but we're seeing a lot of projects that are a dozen or so that are still hanging in there over this time. And in the future, I'd like to discuss not having that situation that we had today and how we can move forward with a procedure for that.
How many times do we review them now?
Well, we have a update of the projects at all of our meetings.
Okay.
And there are a few that just tend to take forever to complete. And then there's others that actually finish on time or close. This includes language that any extension requiring more than a year additional will only be reviewed 2 times per year. So
what is the reason for 2 times a year? I mean, I'm thinking that,
I don't know.
One
Right.
time.
Right now, all of the grants have different expiration dates. So you guys are seeing the requests for extension at almost every meeting. So the idea is to get everybody started on the same schedule. They ask for an extension 1 year, staff says go, and then after that, you see them twice a year.
Is there any penalty? Have you ever, I guess just to request that it's been withdrawn is the only action I've seen, but in the past 20 years, have you seen any situations that escalated into a issue?
There's really no penalty. It's more been like hurry up and finish.
But
You
but
know?
I tell you, we have had an issue where we were displeased that the circumstance had not been maintained. And so there was discussion, particularly by Ms. Northey, about clawing back. Remember that they in fact should pay us back money that was paid. And I thought that was good, but from a practical sense.
that's what was pointed out to me from a practical sense, it doesn't work.
It didn't really work, but but there is no penalty. And I think where we end up, and I kind of like the idea of shutting it off in 1 year, but I don't know what the ramifications would be, because there's going to be money expended already. So we'll be in the middle of the project in some fashion. And so then what do? Do you say, okay, we want our money back, or you're cutting the project there and you're on your own? And so I just don't, I think
I don't know how the
That's-
contract reads, and that would be like for staff to maybe clarify how it's written up. If they don't meet the goal of this, this is the outcome.
Yeah, I just don't know what that,
Because
I don't know what that would be.
sometimes we have grants that aren't even started within a year,
Yeah.
and I think they should be canceled.
I just don't think it's fair to all the folks that are still waiting to push through their projects. So I don't know if staff can elaborate on if there's a way to explain that in the contract that's signed.
The contract right now, the way it's written is if they don't complete it, they have to pay us the entire amount back up until halfway through, and then it's prorated. So, but I don't know of any situation where that's taken place.
Thank you.
Well, do we have a motion or any further conversation?
I'll move a recommended change 6 as written.
A second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Then we have Pat on the phone. Okay. Number 7.
Aye.
Okay. Change 7, include language that any changes in the budget must be at or below 20% of the project's approved budget line item for staff to be able to approve. If 20% of the project's approved budget line item, the change will be presented to the ECHO Advisory Committee and the County Council for review and approval.
I move approval of recommended change 7.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Recommended change number 8, include language that a summary of the quarterly reports will be provided to the ECHO Advisory Committee. If quarterly reports are not submitted or not submitted timely 15 days after the end of the quarter, blah, 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 for 2 consecutive quarters, the grantee will be required to attend an ECHO Advisory Committee meeting to provide an update on their project schedule.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Recommended change 9, include language that site visit and completion of a monitoring worksheet will occur at least 2 times per year during the construction phase.
Can I just ask a question? I'm assuming that that means that staff is going to do a site visit, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm surprised that hasn't happened now.
What it is now. What is that?
Yeah.
Maybe Jill, you could tell us. Or-
I usually go out when I get a quarterly report that it looks like they're having trouble. So it's kind of varies from project to project.
I see. So this creates a minimum of 2 years. 2 times.
Exactly. If there was a problem, I'd go out more than twice.
Okay. I'll move recommended change 9.
Second.
motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Okay, recommended change number 10 includes language that project sites will be visited and completion of the monitoring worksheet will be completed on a tri-annual basis. If there are any concerns, a site visit will be completed on an annual basis or more frequently if warranted until the project receives 3 consecutive clean monitoring reports.
I'm assuming this is after the project has been, after completion, and when we're going out, we had a window of so many years that, yeah, okay. I'll make a motion to recommend change number 10.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none. Okay, recommended change 11, increase.
Aye. Sorry.
Okay. Number 11, increase exceptional grant award from 1.8 million with the distribution of up to 600,000 for 3 consecutive years to 2 million with a distribution over a 3-year period.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
Opposed.
Recommended change 12. Change the match requirement for exceptional grant awards from 4-1 to 1-1.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I want to just discuss this.
Okay.
Then what's the difference between a normal grant? There's an if. It's a 1-to-1 cash match for a normal grant. So are we just getting rid of exceptional grant?
Well, the thing is, people are not applying for exceptional grants because the match is higher. So instead, they apply for 3. They break it into phases instead of just applying for 1 grant for it. It's much easier to just apply, and you have less of a match if you just apply 3 different times as opposed to once.
Yeah, well, it was definitely created, 20 years ago because of big ticket projects.
Right.
Do we just get rid of the exceptional grant?
I don't think so, because that regular grant is up to 600,000. This is 2 million.
Yeah, but we're not, if we're, and I was on the committee, but I'm looking at the 4-1 to 1-1. I'm thinking, okay, so it isn't, you are getting rid of the exceptional grant if you change it to 1-1. So,
Well, it's a grant for a higher amount of money.
It's a larger dollar amount.
right, but it's what makes it exceptional then?
The larger amount of money.
Because they have 2 million to match it.
But if they're gonna, I mean, what would, the idea I think on this was that if there was a large project, that there was an expectation that there would be more dollars put in from the community or from other sources than say Joe Sixpack, not Joe Sixpack, but say the Gateway Center. I'll use the Gateway Center, comes in for a $100,000 expansion. That so by eliminating or taking it down to 1-to-1, all's we're doing is saying, okay, you're not having to go out and raise extra funds for what should be an exceptional project. I mean, there no longer is exceptional projects, is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Well, I think it redefines exceptional projects to be larger projects, in dollar amount. Because otherwise it'd have to be in 3 phases, right? And we have, what is it, 800,000. So if it's in 3 phases, it'd be over, 2.4, right?
Well,
Versus one shot of $2 million.
well, why not look at it? Who came up with 4-to-1 to 1-to-1? Is that,
I think
that,
I
that
think
just went back to the very
historically,
beginning. It's historic, yeah.
Yeah.
it was 4-to-1 and we
Yeah.
just said, well, it's
Because
not
we had
happening,
so
so
many-
1-to-1.
Few applications.
There are, that 4-to-1 came from,
Lively Arts Center, I think.
well, the Lively Arts Center, the Ocean Center.
The Ocean Center was another.
The total amount that you could apply for has varied. Lively Arts Center was 2.4 million. So the exceptional grant started, you could apply for up to $2.4 million. Then it was raised to 3 million. And that's when the county used the exceptional grant to create the Echo Gallery inside the convention center. Check it out sometime.
Oh, yeah. We've been
If you can get in.
many times. We had some.
There's some pictures on the wall.
Had some discussions of that.
But that 4-to-1 came from the average funding of grants for cultural facilities, and this was done on a state level and even on a country-wide level, was your grants would typically come to between 7 and 20% of the overall cost of the project. So you're talking, 5, 6, 7-to-1. So the standards back 20 years ago were really trying to look at the national standards and the statewide standards and say, If we have a countywide project that's going to have a countywide impact, like the partnership center that was funded and then went away. There was talks about the Volusia Fairgrounds, still needs to be addressed somehow. So you have these large projects. You did not want to take all of the funds from what was being brought in that year. So those stands were created to be 4-to-1 match. But if you're getting rid of that 4-to-1 match, it's just, once again, this comes down to, I think next year, when we look at all of these grants, we have to really address all of these issues in detail. I'm going to vote no on this just because I think it needs a lot more discussion.
Are there any other comments?
I'm just trying to think and see how it was created. I guess you guys, is there any way to, I guess for right now, I would have to vote no on it as well. I mean, I could see maybe 3-to-1 or 2-to-1 or something like that, but 1-to-1, I mean, there wouldn't be anything. We go back to 1-to-1. It's no exceptional grants whatsoever.
Well, and over the years, there's always been sufficient funding available for the projects that are applied for. There's almost every year there's a surplus. So I do understand, gosh, if someone came in with a really big number, a big project, that could clean out the entire amount available for grants. But we've never had that happen.
2005 was the last year that we had grants that went through the process, got ranked, but there wasn't funding for it. It's 2003, 2004, 2005. There were a number of projects that did not get funded. So realistically, that's why this was in place.
Mr. Chairman, we've got new members here, and this did come out of the committee. It was not an internal audit issue. So I would perhaps recommend that we table this or continue it. I'm not sure which one we would want to do, but until we have an opportunity for new members and for old members like me to review this again, I'm not hearing anything out there at this point for people that are looking at a exceptional grant right this year anyway. No one's talking that I'm aware of. So I don't think that that we're on fire on this one. So I would move that we table recommended change 12.
Second.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Number 13, an applicant may only have 3 open projects at one time.
Yeah, this one is very much needed. I would move approval of recommended change number 13.
Second.
All in favor?
Can we have a discussion on that?
Oh, certainly.
I'm just curious why this was put on by the committee and if the vote recommending the change to having only 3 open projects at one time, what was the situation that came up?
Well, the situation came up because there were certain municipalities that had many grants spread over 3 or 4 years or more, that they hadn't been completed, they were still open, and then the next grant cycle was coming around and they were applying for another grant. And so that was really, as I recall, that was the reasoning.
And 3 to me just sounds excessive. So I'm questioning why
Like
that?
3, I mean, some people would say 3 is like, too
A
many.
little overzealous.
Yeah.
If you have, some people say, well, if you have the funding available, then, go for it. But it was to eliminate some of these the municipalities that had more, a certain number of grants out there.
I'd propose 2 would be a overstretch for some, seeing that they could be multiple years with multiple. But I would recommend consideration of the comment here, 2 rather than 3 open projects at one time.
I guess some projects could take more than one grant. I mean,
Right.
it's hard to finish a project in a year. I mean, it's one of those things, like there's a point where people have pushed you too far. Like some people we've talked to, but it's like, realistically, it could take 2 or 3 years to finish a project. So somebody could have 2 projects under construction and not be eligible for a new grant until those are completed.
There's an overlap.
Yeah, what's that? So
I think the 3 is fine.
Yeah, it was arbitrary, but the idea, I mean, we were getting so many that it was one on top of the other. We just thought it was impractical. But 3 is probably a better number than 2, because you could have 2 projects underway for more than a year.
I see. Thank you for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments?
I move for recommended change number.
I think we already have that motion.
Oh, do we?
Yeah, I think I made that motion.
Pat made it and I seconded
There we
it.
go.
All right.
Need to vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay. Recommended change 14. Standard year 20-year timeframe for documentation of undistributed use of property and/or buildings across the program that is not dependent on the type of project. Creates a standard 20-year timeframe for compliance with ECHO requirements that is not dependent on the type of project.
Isn't it 40 now? Is
Yeah.
this what this one is? Yeah,
Is that what the,
yeah.
There's 30-year and 40-year, and just once again, historical perspective on that. Those years were, that time frame came up with because of we're supposed to be building for generations. I understand that a lot of people, it's paperwork. Cultural organizations need to supply all that information every year for their funding, for the national surveys that they're supposed to be involved in. So they need to do it anyways. I'm gonna vote no on this simply because I still believe in that generational time frame.
Somebody help me. Our requirement now is 40,
And 30.
and 30?
depending on what type. And reducing it does what?
It reduces the administration of keeping up with it, for an extended period of time. And oftentimes they say, well, 20
Well-
years, I won't be here anyway, type of thing. And I think it became kind of like an extended period of time. And 20 years seemed like an adequate commitment.
You want to be able to always tell the general public how many people use these facilities. It's an ECHO reporting guideline too. So if ECHO has, funded X number of projects, sometimes it's good to have that data in terms of how many people are using.
Well, and the other thing is there any guarantee that after 20 years, it's no longer accessible to the public? I mean, right now they give us the report, which is telling us about the hours they're open and what they're doing. And after 20 years, then we're not going to know. So, is it a excessive burden, or does it get back to my earlier comment about the cost of doing business? Someone has to fill out the loan application. So I don't know. I mean, 30 or 40 years sounds like a long time, but now, of course, at my age, it's not that long.
I know.
It was just yesterday. So
What
this-
is, what do
this-
we do, 25? 25 years? Quarter of a century. Quarter of a century.
Yeah.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Yeah, I agree with that, 25.
Okay. Someone like to make a motion to amend 20
I'll make a
to
motion that
25?
we recommend to change 14 with an amendment with a 25-year time frame.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, 2 opposed.
Pat?
He vacated the building.
It was 6-4, 2 opposed. Okay, recommended change 15. Change of standard grants, public access must be provided 4 years from award from 3 years from award.
So remind me, Jill, I think this one meant that they had to be open 3 years from the grant instead of 4, correct? I don't remember why we did this one.
Yes, with the exceptional grant, they had 3 years to complete it. So they didn't have to have full public access until year 4.
Is that only
Well, this says
exceptional?
standards grants, though. This
It's
is a
standard.
standard grant.
I believe the
With
intent
a
was
standard,
to
gr-
get
yeah,
these things
it's only
moving.
open, it goes for 2 years, so they should have.
Okay, so do we want to take that one out then? Because it's
Yeah.
already, you're saying it's already in place for 2 years, correct? Okay, so just eliminate recommended change 15, Mr. Chairman? Is that what you,
I believe so.
okay.
So we'll take no action.
No action, yeah.
No action on number 15. Number 16, changes in exceptional grants, public access must be provided 4 years from the date of last award to 4 years from the initial award.
Survey says. 4 years. Boy, this is taxing my brain, remembering what our
Public
conversations
access
were
must
on this one.
Provided 4 years from the date of last.
Oh, this, okay, if
Or-
this is if they got multiple awards, so yeah. So I'll move, recommend to change 16. This makes it open faster to the public. I read it correctly, yeah.
I second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Recommended change 17. Construction documentation requirements were elaborated to ensure a specific type of plans are included in each category of construction documents to ensure projects are ready to move forward if awarded a grant. I'll be happy to start with that because we've seen so many people come in here with Photoshops with magic marker on top, and it's considered construction documents.
Right.
And it's not, in my opinion. I mean, these are not shovel-ready projects. If you're standing here with a Photoshop, there is no way that thing's going to be done in 2 years. If you haven't started your planning with, the architects, engineers, surveyors, whatever. So that is what, that's where this came about.
Right. And I couldn't agree with you more. I do think there's a point here for the small nonprofits that they could kind of depend on the award for certain professionals. So that point that was made there, that for nonprofits, I don't know this to be the case, but I could see it where a nonprofit, especially a small nonprofit, would be burdened by this to have it in a professional form and yet they still be potentially ready.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to give money to, I mean, I'm supportive of small not-for-profits, but I expect them to be
Ready.
doing the right way and.
Well, fair enough. You
Yeah.
know better than I, Matt. Pat. Thanks.
So that was the intent, is when these awards are granted. And again, that's why we're having these discussions about these playgrounds. You know, they said, oh, we have shovel-ready plans, we're ready to go, we've got the match. And here 3 years later, we're still talking about it.
I'll make a motion to approve number 17.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Recommended change 18 requires the business plan, feasibility study, and marketing plans to be specific to Volusia County.
Pretty obvious.
Like no brainer.
I reckon.
I agree.
I move for recommended change number 18.
One second.
We hear a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, moving to 19. For exceptional grants, remove the requirement for a project to be in the top 2 of the regular grant cycle.
We're going to table that?
Yeah, let's table that one because I'm not sure I'm.
Good idea. Smart.
Okay. We're gonna, yeah, we're taking no action. We're gonna table that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
a point of clarification because we're going to bring back the document. So no action, the tabling that you're doing means that it will stay the same in the guidebook as it is presently. Correct? We're all on the same page?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Recommended change number 20. Requires proof of performance bond naming Volusia County as a co-obligee is submitted prior to notice to proceed is issued.
Move approval.
I'll second it.
There you go.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Approved. Recommended change 21, require Volusia County logo and Echo logo to appear on the project and applicant website and included in all media, print, and/or electronic materials for the project within 90 days of award. Any materials or electronic that utilizes the Volusia County logo and Echo logo must be approved by Volusia County prior to publication.
Mr. Chairman, this is a big deal to me. I think this has to happen, but I'm just want to be sure that when we raise this, because this is one of the issues that I raised, that it isn't just during the process of the development of the ECHO project, but it stays, if we have put money into a project that, and it's on the city's website or a not-for-profit's website, their project, that ECHO logo or the county logo is on there for the duration, not just for the construction of the project or while the ECHO award is active, but long-term. This is a commitment. Taxpayers have put money into this project and it needs to be, they need to know that ECHO has contributed, because I have not found it on a number of websites on projects that we have funded, that when it's all done and the project's put up on the website, there's not a mention of ECHO dollars, and it just
But, I mean,
destroys.
that's what we want. That's what this says, though. It should be.
Well,
This wasn't for temporary or under construction.
I'm just making sure. Okay.
I'm with you. Okay. Maybe, in fact, maybe we could take it further and put some teeth in it. I don't know, but I agree with you. At the same time, I thought that the position of the temporary sign and how significant that could be, I thought that was a whole nother subject.
Yeah.
And I thought that was, I thought that was a good point. I don't know what the requirement is for the sizing. They remembered they were saying, the size requirement was impractical. I don't know what that is, and we may want to relook at that sometime. But the one that appears perpetually should be significant and in every media form.
I totally agree, and I think we should even take it further. I mean, any social media that they're doing, it should be on there. I mean, we need to splash it everywhere. It's not splashed. You don't see it. Or it's really small, or when the plaque goes up or something, but we need to make the citizens aware of what's going on continuously, and they need to be a big assistance. Anybody who gets awarded, it needs to be in there. It needs to be on their social media. It needs to be, everywhere.
Well,
And somehow
that's-
we have to enforce that. Somehow we have to even put some teeth into this and make it.
Well, maybe the word that Jack just used, perpetuity, it needs to be put in there. I don't know, but I can tell you that I know that it hasn't happened in the past.
I agree.
And when we were running the campaign for Echo and Forever, Echo especially, people did not recognize or a lot of them, what the volume of the kinds of projects.
No, I totally agree. I think it should be everywhere. I would love to see little plaques going down 95, welcome to Volusia County, home of Echo, and all these projects and all that, our sign everywhere. But, and I think that should be done. People, sometimes don't think that way, but I think we should have it like that. But, I mean, we just need to get it in front of the public. Public's not aware of it. And, I don't even think our elected officials are sometimes aware of it. So
if we adopted this recommendation 21, could we add something that request that the staff come back with a recommendation plan that is a standard recommendation plan for publicity? Maybe that's not the right word, but
Well, that's a different, that's a different subject.
Yeah.
But maybe they need to have a plan for,
that addresses social
Yeah,
media, that addresses
and
websites. It says,
it may just be a language that's in
Yeah,
here
I don't know.
that's hardened a little bit. I don't know if we need to go to monitoring it.
no,
But
I know, I would think that if we say, perpetuity, that they would understand what perpetuity
or as
means.
long as it's open to
The public,
right.
accessible to the
I think
public.
it's a fair request.
Yeah.
It's basically language.
Any further comments? Would someone like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve the way it's written here, recommended change.
Second.
Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
So we have 2 against?
Yeah.
We're good. Okay, my goodness, we got through number 21. Congratulations.
Let me ask a couple decision points that weren't on here. And I put it in kind of the same form as before, which was, should green infrastructure, because we talked so much about that, be an acceptable criteria for ECHO grants?
Thank you, because I was going to add that during advisory committee. Yeah.
Because
That was on my list
That was
too.
on my list. Yeah, because I was kind of surprised it wasn't.
Right.
But, and I'm not sure exactly why it would be excluded.
Well, we used to require, the county used to require green on building.
Right.
And I think that we should have some kind of language that addresses green infrastructure and green technology.
Right. I totally agree with native plants and rainwater harvesting and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the whole discussion of the living shorelines and all that was discussed. It seemed like a whole area that fits our principles.
Yeah.
But at the same time, at least they were presenting it as though it didn't, or that we didn't think it was appropriate. So I just want to make sure we see it as part of our criteria, and maybe we already do.
Isn't that already in the grant application?
We do ask for green construction. I'm so sorry.
Go right ahead.
But what Kelly talked about at the meeting was a little different than what is in our books. Because she wasn't just talking about building green buildings. She was speaking more about the living shorelines and things like that.
I'm
And
not
that's not
talking about
part.
living shorelines as part of that discussion. I'm talking about green infrastructure. I'm talking about if they're going to do lighting, are they going to do
Yes, that's
LED.
already
green
part of it.
lighting or
It is- it is
roofing
not-
material?
Mhm.
It is
Low impact, any clearing of the land, low impact development of the land clearing. Is that in there?
It is allowed currently. That's why it wasn't a decision point.
It
So
is.
the-
That's the standard they have to build to.
Shoreline.
living shoreline is a little different because they're doing it on an easement. And so that's why she felt it was a little different, because that's not essentially owned. It's an easement from the property owner is what they've done in the past.
I think, and I like the work that Kelly is doing down there at Riverside Conservancy, but I think that's a whole separate discussion that this board needs to have about exactly how do we implement that. I don't think we can do that today. Is there a requirement that we have that discussion today, Brad, or can we talk about, because that's really new cutting edge stuff.
And I think it aligns with the Volusia Forever synergy. We can bring that back for
There
a
you
point
go.
of discussion. But as it stands, my understanding in my conversations with Ms. Hall is green infrastructure as we know it and as defined by the EPA and state is eligible under our current program.
Well, I think what we've said, it should be required.
Correct. Required.
If they're going to build a building, they need to build the damn thing green.
Yes.
I disagree. I think it should be highly encouraged, but not a factor of yes or no for funding.
I think
That's the way it is right now, is that it's encouraged, but it's not required.
Yeah, but I mean,
Needs to be required.
yeah, you just won't happen then. It
Yeah,
just,
unless state requires it. The state requires new buildings.
Some of it. Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
how far they go,
Yeah.
but I tell you, it does happen. Anyway, I mean, and because the question's almost every time it's asked, and we find that they do quite a bit of it, but without it being required, but being recommended. And when it's not, if it comes up that it's not, it's kind of discouraged as a project. And we all kind of say, well, we're not sure.
And then
like
it could
this
be
project
rated
as
lower.
much. So I'm not sure we need it to be stated as an absolute, because then we have to get into the real specifics of what that means. But
Well,
I think what we're
also-
doing now is working, and the state is on top with certain requirements. So
Yeah, and there's also, I know personally, when they've come before us, I've always asked that question. And if they say, if they're, like, on it, they get lower grade from me. I mean, that's.
yeah, and we're with you.
Yeah.
We all look at them, particularly when we're dealing with eco projects. I mean, it's
Oh, yeah.
tops that they should have. There should be environmental connection. Anyway, so I'm comfortable with recommendation versus requirement because I think it's working.
Well, the problem with green with buildings is how far do you take it?
Exactly.
That's what my concern is.
And when you go to like, the term LEED was real popular 5 years ago. We're not hearing it so much anymore. And that's because it sounded great, but it's a really ongoing, expensive project to do. So then organizations started coming up with like Florida Green Standard or something. I may be slightly off in the nomenclature.
Well,
but
there is an organization because,
there,
yeah.
Greenbuild organization throughout
Yes.
Jacksonville, and they
Yeah.
rate the buildings
Yes.
to certain ratings. But the thought of more expensive, the thought of, it doesn't stand true anymore. It really doesn't, especially when you incorporate the clearing of the land. Clearing the land is
It was the,
typically less expensive.
I think it was the ongoing monitoring with it.
Well, I mean, there's nothing we're monitoring. The green buildings issue a plaque typically to the building or something like that. But they do have to keep up with the HVAC where it's green lead points. I just think that we need to set a precedent. We're ECHO for a reason, environmental, E.
Right.
And I think that's a good precedent to set. And I think the cities need to get on board. There is certain cities that have great plans and they don't use them. They don't even go for it. And if you ask the developer afterwards, they'll say, no one told me about it.
Yeah.
And we need to set a precedent. And I just feel, ultimately with the native plants, with the green buildings, with rainwater harvesting, it really doesn't cost more. And I think it's a good precedent to set.
It was the ongoing monitoring with the lead.
Yeah,
program.
I don't know.
Had
I
to be
mean,
recertified every so many years and stuff.
if you get it started out in that direction, hopefully they'll realize the efficiency of, the recertifications if it deals with water or electric cost or anything, and they'll see it's well worth it. And I just feel like, it's an ongoing thing. And I think we need to set that precedent that we are echo for E for environment and take care of it.
One of our employees here, her husband is very involved with green technology and building green and maintaining green. It might be something that would be interesting to this board to have Ralph present what that means from his organization, because I think he's president this year, if I'm not mistaken. But Ralph Locke, Ginger, right? Ginger's husband. Katrina. Where did Ginger? I know where I'm getting confused. Katrina's husband.
Are there any other items for
Well,
discussion?
yeah,
Jack?
well, one other,
I see you have this list.
I do, but I'm not going to use them all. So we've kind of covered. One was, and this is a unique one that came up in one of the listening sessions, relative to public access, and should it include children or only adults? Remember, we had the discussion where he was kept
You're
from
right.
getting Echo funds.
Boys and Girls Club.
And the Boys and Girls Club. And I thought that was incredibly crazy, because he said that, in fact, because they were children, that it wasn't full public access. And so consequently, he wasn't allowed to apply.
Yeah, because he wasn't a public. People didn't come in from the public. He took care of public
but aren't
kids.
the children public?
Yeah.
And I thought
Yeah.
that's a fair question for us to put in there. I saw no reason to keep that out of an ECHO funding position.
I was with you on that one.
Yeah.
I agree too. And the Boys and Girls Club is one of those nonprofits that year after year after year raises hundreds of thousands of dollars each year. They know how to do it.
Good point. You're right. Yeah, he needed the funding. I got that impression. But yeah, the only other point I had here was that should we identify a master plan to develop and identify projects similar to what Forever does. We've already talked about that, and so I'm sure that'll come back at another time. But I believe it's an important facet of ECHO going forward, thinking in terms of us resetting it for another
I
20
agree.
years. We really should be looking at that.
Because we're just piecemealing it now.
Well, we're completely reactionary. We just take whatever
yeah.
comes in the door.
I'd like to see us be proactive.
I think we need to be not only proactive, but plan it and decide
yep.
what we really think are important that we should do and get the most out of our dollars in doing so. Anyway, that's enough of that.
Okay. With that, I'd like to open up the public participation. One person has soldiered through all of this with us today.
Someone here?
Altona's here.
We lost a few people. Do we know who they were?
We did.
They were from Stetson.
Are they Stetson?
Yeah, they were Stetson people.
So, okay, no public participation. I don't believe we have any more advisory committee comments.
I just have one.
Okay.
I started talking about them earlier, but I had written down 3 goals for 2022 that I would like to see echo. One of them was the need to have a grant for each letter in echo. And to reiterate what Pat Northey said earlier, I still believe we need to conduct a needs survey with the municipalities in the county to see what we need over the next 20 years. And then the third one was, I really think we need to look at and possibly reformat just the annual reports. that the organizations submit to us. It's a generic form. I think the first question is, are your doors still open? Doesn't really give us information about the project. I just think that the annual reports for each application needs to be written for that application. What were their goals? What were their promises made? And how are they fulfilling those goals? And that shouldn't be too difficult to do based on the application that comes in.
Agree with that.
Any other comments?
I had a comment from someone who was sitting in the public, Stetson's CFO, and he thought perhaps Echo or staff could inform the could inform the public on places they could apply for grants other than Echo, because you can use those grants as match. I mean,
I understand that, but I'm not sure that's our role, that's our job. But they most of those places have grants administrators, so.
well, small not-for-profit wouldn't, but they can Google it.
Yeah, yeah.
So my one comment is, have we completed the information we needed to without having to have a June 24th meeting?
I believe so. A check from staff, Brad.
So it's really up to the committee. So at this point, I'll explain kind of the options. So if we do not have that meeting, we would make the changes, aligned copy change that you've suggested today to the guidebook. We would share that with you and the council. And when you have your joint meeting, we will make any changes after that meeting, bring them back to you for final adoption or final recommendation to bring to the council for adoption. So it's, if you are fine with us moving forward with these recommended changes with a line copy, then we don't need the 24th. If you'd like to see it again as a group and discuss it before you meet with council, then we would need to have it.
I think I trust you all
I'm
to
good.
do what,
Yeah,
you know.
I think we're all warned.
Y'all have been sitting here listening to us yammer.
In the case of development of a master plan and that discussion that's come up a couple times, and it's never been put into a motion, is that something that could be incorporated in what is provided to the county council?
Unless you want to make a motion now,
Well, we could.
make a
Well,
motion.
I'd like to make a motion that we develop a master plan, a basic roadmap to projects of interest or areas of interest within Volusia County for the ECHO program going forward.
Jeffrey, does that address what we were just talking about taking in, like, with it in, that would be included in inventory of
Be a
existing
need survey.
need survey. Yeah.
I think
I'll second
it's
that.
a lot
We include
easier
it.
to just understand a need survey.
But a needs survey would be the beginning of developing a master plan. I mean, if you don't understand the needs, right? Then you get that data, that inventory, and
But the question is, where are you getting that? I mean, we may see things that aren't provided by municipalities, right?
well, I don't see how you can do a needs survey by relying solely on municipalities,
Right.
given the history of.
Well, there's more to it as I see it. I think the need surveys.
And I think the master plan is, or a strategic plan, some kind of a planning document that.
That's right. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And in order to be, more proactive in the development of these ECHO projects.
Which goes back to the discussion on priority.
Well, it does.
Well,
It does to some extent go to priorities.
And certainly, the listening sessions, I felt like much of the listening sessions were what you would do to begin that process. We were hearing from people about what they thought was important.
Yeah.
And at least I heard, and Jack, I think you said it well, we have a little bit of a weakness in terms of what we've done with regard to the E part of ECHO. You know, and some of what was being discussed was a way to broaden that in the listening sessions.
I would expect that any kind of a planning process isn't going to be something that gets done in the first 60 days of a new council year. I think that's something that maybe over the course of this year, I mean, that we ask the council if we can include that and
Yeah, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting us to come up with that in the short term. I just want
It's
it
long term.
slated.
Yeah.
That we have another workshop and we hone in on it and we all decide, okay, these are different priorities. We don't even know how we would prioritize these things as much as just identifying and creating the plan itself. And that could take some time without question.
It would.
We did 20 years ago when we did listening sessions, we actually put paper up on the walls, that paper that has the adhesive on it, and we wrote down. We said, what do you want to see Echo do? And we wrote down specific projects, and we went back 10 years after that and said, well, we've done most of what we said we wanted, that you taxpayers said you wanted done. So we went back out at the 10-year mark and had listening sessions for needs, specifically for needs. And the listening sessions were kind of a combination of policy and what do you want to see? So
To me, I think that's exactly right. And I'm going to take it a step further. To me, we should have someone within the county who's actually assigned to this, okay, who says, okay, here's the plan, and we have interest in these particular areas, or whether they be locations or whether they be specific, projects. But they actually go out and try to find a way, find a nonprofit to
we heard
support
a
it.
huge number of, I mean, the 170 million is what you said, Russ?
Well,
I said, don't hold me to that.
Well,
but
I'm
yes,
not
ma'am.
holding you to it.
Thank you.
But that's a lot of money. And just to say, okay, we're just going to put a
Wait,
million
we're
here
going to
and a
wait
million
and see
there.
what comes in, particularly if
We
we've
need
got areas of concern. And I think that we could, what I liked about the Forever program from before, as I understand it, is they had an individual actually with the county who's going out and knocking on doors and saying, hey, this particular property is of interest to us. Are you interested? Well, that's kind of the opposite of what we do or what we have done. What we have done is wait and see who's
And
here.
it might encourage regionalism in the sense that, cities might get together and say, hey, we could use these ball fields, or we could use a track and field venue, or we could do something else.
Or bigger projects.
And that's where your exceptional grants come in.
Exactly. Could be larger projects, things like that. I think to me, it's obvious that we just need a bit of a plan going forward, and how far we get the participation on the part of the county administration itself, how much they're going to play a role in it. But from our standpoint, I think we should say, yeah, we need a plan. We need a plan, and let's get that done. Now, that may take us a year to do, but so be it. It's better than what we had.
I had a question for Russ. So in our workshop with Forever, they mentioned that they actually solicit proposals for the people who are coming forward with requests. Is that an accurate statement?
So, and I'm sorry, I wasn't here at that meeting, so I don't know how it was phrased, but they do have the ability to ask people that may meet the criteria for Forever purchases if they'd like to be a willing seller. And if they'd like to be a willing seller, they have to fill out the paperwork, which is basically says I'd like to be a willing seller and start the process. And that's how it starts. So yes, the committee is ambassadors, much like you are, for the ECHO program, and can get the word out to different individuals. But there is an actual process within Forever that starts there's an actual application within the Forever program that kind of starts the process.
So would it be appropriate for ECHO board members to encourage applications?
Yes, ma'am. And I think people do that. If you're at a meeting or in your other interests and involvement, civic and personal, I encourage everybody that if you know a nonprofit that potentially has some type of background that the county's looking at that fits the 4 letters in the word, so to speak, and point them to the program and get them in touch with Brad here and his staff, and they can walk through the grant cycle application process with them and see if they would be a good candidate for, what their purposes are for a project. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for clarification.
Okay. Well, if there are no further
I had a motion.
comments,
We had a motion in a second
we have a motion and a second for
for the master
For the
plan.
the master
yeah.
plan. sorry.
Development of a master plan.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And with that, I'm going to adjourn before you come up with one more thing.
Chicken. Can we take these? I mean, I normally wouldn't, but it's got a lot of information on the listening sessions and I can